G'day. Welcome to Deep and Meaningfuls with Furzey. I'll tell you what, there's three things that I love in life. Swinging a kettlebell, being a human man, and a good, deep chat. That is why my guest on this episode is Mr. Mike Mahler. He is a kettlebell expert and a hormone optimization specialist. Some of the things you're going to learn in this episode are the deep connection between hormone health and mental health, the dangers of hair loss medication, the things you're doing that are ruining your body's testosterone production, and the best ways to improve it, natural supplementation versus testosterone replacement therapy or TRT, and a lot more. So testosterone levels are declining at about 1% per year. A modern man in his 30s has about the same testosterone levels as a man from the 1980s did in his 60s. I really enjoyed chatting with Mike. He definitely knows his stuff, and I'm even going to do a little experiment on myself using his natural testosterone supplement. Gentlemen, if you don't know much about hormonal health, do yourself a favor, listen to this episode with Mike Mahler. I came across an article that you wrote about hair loss and about hormone optimization. And
right.
And I was, I actually noticed I started to go bald when I was like in my early 20s, when I was young. My old man's as bald as they come. And it was something that I knew was coming, and I was always pretty cool with it. But I also have spent a lot of time being an actor and being in the entertainment industry, and that doesn't work. You can't be, I knew pretty early on, like, you can't be a young man with no hair. There's no room for that. You're either a thug or a military guy, or
exactly.
you're getting nothing. Yeah. So that, in that regard, it kind of played on my mind. So I was trying to do all the things to stop myself from going bald. So I went to one of these clinics in Australia, and I was doing the drops on my head, and I was taking the saw palmetto and the finasteride, which is Propecia, right? And I don't know if I was really observing myself feeling any negative results. I wasn't really observing much improvement in my hair loss, but if I'm honest, I didn't like doing it. I was like, this is a pain in the ass. I don't want to keep doing this. And I was just kind of fed up with it. And I came across that article. I think I must have been searching for something, and I came across an article that you'd written about hormone optimization, talking about DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is the thing that causes male pattern baldness, a buildup of DHT in the center part of the scalp, for anyone who doesn't know. And you take the finasteride and put the minoxidil and stuff on in order to suppress that hormone. Is that your understanding of how it works?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing about DHT is that it's only going to cause baldness in men who have a genetic predisposition towards baldness. So, for example, I have pretty high DHT levels, and I'm 51. Full head of hair.
Dude, your hairline's going nowhere.
Yeah. But you know what? For my whole kettlebell career, I had a shaved head, right? Yes. So I'm comfortable with, if I lose hair, it's not that big of a deal, because I spent over a decade with a shaved head, just like what you have right now.
Yeah.
And I look fine with it. And honestly, it's actually really convenient. That's one of the pluses.
Once you embrace it, to anyone who's like anyone out there who's going bald and you're thinking about it, just fucking do it, man. Because it's the best thing you'll ever do. The convenience is.
Well, you have a good shaped head too, and that plays into it. See, some guys, their heads, they don't have a good shaped head. Yeah. So that's what freaks them out even more, is they're losing their hair. They're like, oh, I'm not going to look good bald. And they freak out about it. I think losing your hair, you're going to start freaking out anyway, just because you feel that your age is accelerating now.
Yeah.
But like when you see people balding, when they're losing hair and their hairline is receding, you automatically start looking older. You start getting that bald patch in the back of your head. You start looking older. But before I go off on too much of a tangent, coming back to your question about DHT, DHT is basically, testosterone is a pro-hormone for DHT. So DHT is even stronger when it comes to certain qualities, such as increasing your sex drive, increasing erection strength, and increasing just your drive in general. So you find that you're way more motivated. You're way more ready to take charge of the day when your DHT levels are at an optimal level. Wow. And there was a study done in Italy where they gave these older men, I think they were in their 60s at least, they gave them DHT cream. And they all started going bald. They were losing hair like crazy. But nobody wanted to stop taking it because their sex drive was just resurrected. Their sexual performance was so improved. Like, who cares about losing hair?
Yeah. Especially at that
so
age,
much better.
They're like, it doesn't.
Exactly. So that's the interesting thing about DHT. But generally, it's only going to cause hair loss if you have a genetic predisposition or if you're taking anabolics that just take your DHT levels through the roof. Then you may start experiencing hair loss even if you don't have a genetic predisposition, because DHT does have an affinity for hair follicles. That's why some of the products out there's certain shampoos you can take which supposedly block DHT from the hair follicles and protect your hair follicles without affecting DHT elsewhere, because you don't want to lower DHT too much. You don't want it to be super high, because that can have some negative impact on the prostate. It can make the prostate more enlarged, although that's questionable as well. That's still up for debate. But generally, and then your blood pressure can go up if DHT is too high. So there's like hormones, there's an optimal range for every person. And if you exceed that range, then it can start having negative impact on you. So with DHT and the hair follicles, the shampoos theoretically work pretty well, but honestly, I don't know anyone who has used them who has this thick, full head of hair going, I started losing my hair a little bit and I started taking this shampoo and now my DHT levels are high, but I still have this thick head full of hair. I don't know. Maybe it slows down the process. I don't know. It's hard to say.
My opinion, man, none of it works. It doesn't it might do a small amount, but it doesn't do what you want it to do. That's the truth of it. And I know
that's the problem right there.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The only thing that works is a hair transplant, and that is very expensive. From the guys that I know that have done it, it's very painful, and you have to be on all the stuff too, because the hair that they transplant in the bald spots will fall out if you don't take the stuff, apparently. Right. So it's like you've got to. Right. For me, I just got to a point where I was like, I don't care enough about my hair. I don't want to be doing this. Like I like having no hair. I just don't care enough about it. Like kind of like you shaved your head. There's probably a point where I'd be like, I went through a phase where I only wore all black because I just couldn't be bothered. I just didn't want to be thinking about that, about what I was wearing. And so I was like shaving the head. I kind of get it, what the monks are doing at some time, just keep life simple.
I thought about shaving my head again just for the convenience of it. Maybe grow my hair back later. I've thought about just shaving my head for a couple of months just so I don't have to deal with.
I feel like though you have an obligation.
Combing hair, going to the barbershop.
but your hair's crazy, man. You got some cool shit going on. Is this with your beard and your discoloring? Is that like birthmarks?
I experienced a severe sunburn when I was in my late 20s, and that caused an autoimmune reaction, which basically my whole face was damaged from the sun, and everything except this area healed properly. So this area here and here, the beard covers up the depigmentation, and then on my neck, and then it's actually on top of my head too, where there's certain areas where the pigmentation was obliterated. Whoa. So the hair grows out white from there. So this is actually white hair, not gray hair.
Oh shit.
Now
so
I do dye my beard. So no, I wasn't born with that. So that was in the late 20s. In my late 20s, I experienced that.
Wow, what a trip
that was. Yeah, that was. I mean, honestly, I'm glad I didn't grow up with it, because we know kids are cruel, and that would have been extremely difficult to deal with as a young person. It was difficult for me to deal with as a guy in my late 20s, because it was a drastic change in my physical experience, literally overnight.
Yeah.
So I have this sunburn, and then where you're like, wait a minute, this area is not healing. Maybe it'll take longer to heal. Never did. I mean, that was over 20 years ago. And I kept getting diagnosed as vitiligo, which is similar in appearance, but vitiligo basically is also an autoimmune condition where your immune system is attacking healthy skin tissue. So in my case, instead of my immune system healing that area, basically attacked it as a foreign invader, and it actually permanently got rid of the pigmentation. So with vitiligo, it starts off as a very small white patch, and then usually it starts on the legs or your hands or your arms, and then it builds up over time to the point where your whole body you basically can become an albino in appearance. Your whole body just changes. I mean, there's a famous model out there. She has vitiligo. She's embraced it. She looks great, but it's spreading on her.
Yes, yeah. and you can even like black people can get it. So black
people are more likely to get it. Yeah, people of certain ethnicities are more likely to get it. So Latino people, black people, Indian people. I'm half Indian.
Okay,
people in India, it's much more common. Yeah, it's much more common in that. So that honestly it was very difficult when it first happened. It's not something I think about anymore. Now I've had it for so long. But every doctor I went to diagnosed it as vitiligo, which was frustrating because of the way it manifested. when you study vitiligo, you don't just wake up and have this big white patch on your knee, for example. It starts off as these small white patches, and then they start becoming more frequent over your body, and then they become bigger over time. So it gradually gets bigger. In my case, the only area I have deep pigmentation is right here on my face. Nowhere else on my body. Hasn't spread anywhere else. So it was just areas that were affected by the sun.
So is your gray patch that just happens to be?
Yeah, this is actually just natural, just graying. That's just aging. Yeah.
Dude,
so this is actually gray. This is actually white. So it's a subtle difference.
Dude, I think it's awesome. I rock it, man. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I mean, and it is what it is. So you kind of, you love it or hate it.
Well, sometimes in life you get these curveballs and you just have to embrace them. And, what's funny is, well, it's not really funny, but it gave me perspective when I was in Los Angeles one time. And early in my kettlebell career, I was very... Now, I wouldn't say insecure because I put myself out there in front of people teaching courses, but I was very aware of my appearance, and it was constantly on my mind, like what other people are thinking. That went away after teaching several courses. It didn't stop me from pursuing anything, but it was something that was on my mind. And I would sometimes be down on myself about it. But I remember one time I was walking my dog in Los Angeles, and I went to pick up her droppings. And when I raised up, a severely disfigured woman walked right by, and I caught her face in my field of vision, and I kind of went like that, right, startled, and I felt horrible for doing that because I'm sure this poor lady experiences that everywhere she goes. I mean, but she was severely disfigured to the point where you don't really see that too often.
Yeah, you're not expecting it.
Yeah, but I felt terrible about it, and that gave me some perspective. Was going, man, what you're dealing with is nothing. This poor lady, everywhere she goes, every day she's going to have to experience that kind of look of people just being startled.
A moment of perspective and gratitude. Yeah.
The
hormone optimization rabbit hole, right? So I think that's what I was at the time when I came across your work and learned about that. I made the decision to go, well, okay, I didn't realize that your hormones play such a huge part on how you feel about your life. I didn't know that.
So true.
I just thought that, high testosterone meant high sex drive, high aggression, and bigger muscles. That was my, and at this point I was probably only 26. I'm 38 now, so I've learned a lot more since then. But at that point, it really blew my mind to learn about how much your hormones affect how you feel about your life. Talk to me about that, man, because I don't know if people realize that you can have a terrible outlook on your life and be completely depressed, and it's purely related to having bad hormone health. Whereas on the flip side, if you can get your hormones working well, or even have to get to the point where you're doing hormone replacement therapy, it can change your life. And you can actually feel
it's incredibly important. Basically, hormones are biochemical messengers that have a profound impact on how you think and feel. So if you're highly motivated, there's a hormonal connection to that. If you're depressed, there's a hormonal connection to that as well. If you're despondent, you don't feel like doing anything, there's a hormonal connection to that. So I don't want to overly simplify depression and say that it's 100% because of hormonal imbalances. But what I will say is that hormones have a profound effect on
it's not 0%.
Mitigating depression, improving your outlook, improving your mood. There's no doubt about it. So if someone's depressed, they should definitely look at their hormonal profile. Things such as pregnenolone, DHEA, testosterone, insulin. Look at your fasting glucose levels and get an idea of what your hormonal picture is. Because if you are depleted in those important hormones, then if nothing else, putting them into optimal ranges for you will have a profound impact on your overall mood. It may not eradicate the depression, but I guarantee you it'll quell it and make it much more manageable. But going back to your points, yes, if you have, here's a story. My friend Dr. Mark Gordon treats a lot of people, especially soldiers, veterans who have traumatic brain injuries. And what happens is when the brain gets injured, it can inhibit your ability to produce growth hormone and testosterone. So those levels go to 0. And he's worked with soldiers that were suicidal, alcoholics, completely depressed, unmotivated, didn't want to live, and replaced their testosterone in particular and growth hormone, but testosterone in particular is profoundly beneficial for mood. And it just turned their whole life around. there's this friend of mine, Andrew Marr. He started an organization called Warrior Angels, and he's a Special Forces former veteran. And he's a guy that was highly motivated. You don't become a Special Forces guy without being incredibly motivated. And he came back from his last tour, and he was just incredibly depressed. He had no sex drive. He had no drive to do anything. He was an alcoholic. He was suicidal. And he said after just one shot of testosterone, he felt an incredible difference just after one shot.
Wow.
But you have to realize this is a guy who probably had zero, not low levels, but zero for a long period of time. And it was just his mental toughness that kept him going forward. And after just one shot, he noticed a profound difference. So yeah, I mean, now these are extreme examples. So if you've had a head concussion, let's say you were in a bad car accident or you played sports and you had head impact. A lot of us have had mild concussions and we don't even realize it. And I went snowboarding one time when I was a teenager. I remember I crashed and the back of my head just slammed into ice. And then I didn't think much of it at the time, but who knows what the impact of just that was. So we've all, any kind of impact can just rattle your brain, and then your ability to produce hormones is impacted by that to the point where you may not be producing anything. Yeah. So that's where you can do testing to see what you can look at. There's a hormone called luteinizing hormone, which your brain sends to your testicles to ramp up your own production of testosterone. So if you've had a brain injury, you may find that your luteinizing hormone is non-existent, and then that's why your natural production of testosterone is non-existent. And then in that case, natural production methods are not going to be effective because the mechanism that your body uses to produce testosterone naturally has been completely halted. So that just taking things to ramp up your own production are not going to work because of that. And that's where hormone replacement can be. It's incredibly effective in those cases and life-changing.
It can even affect your personality. Like that's something that,
yeah, absolutely.
Which is really interesting. I mean, everybody knows the extreme versions where people get roid rage, right?
Yeah. And that's more related to because when you take testosterone, adrenaline goes up too. And some people don't handle adrenaline really well. So they're just in this wired state all the time.
Yeah, right.
They don't
just
know
reactive.
what to do with that. Yeah. But roid rage is, I think steroids make people more of what they already are.
Sure.
So people that have roid rage, they were probably assholes to begin with. And this just amplified that.
Can you define steroids for me?
Well, okay. So for the basic steroid would be testosterone. Testosterone is basically a steroid. Now, anabolic steroids are just chemically altered versions of testosterone. So what they try to do is amplify the anabolic properties, the muscle building properties, the strength building properties, and lower the androgenic properties so that you don't get prostate enlargement or conversion to estrogen or hair loss and things like that. So anabolic steroids are actually stronger than just straight testosterone, but also have more side effects as a result of that. Because again, they're chemically altered. Your body doesn't recognize them as anything natural. While bioidentical hormone replacement, you're basically giving your body back a hormone that you're no longer producing anymore, and it recognizes it. It goes, okay, this is testosterone. We're not making anymore. Let's use this. It's also why if you take, let's say someone just takes bioidentical testosterone, over time it will reduce your own production of it, potentially shut it down completely, because your body recognizes that as, okay, why are we going to put all this energy into making testosterone when we're getting it in this exogenous form?
Sure.
So let's just reduce our own production or let's shut down our own production and just rely on this. Now, that doesn't matter for a man who's at a certain age where you're not producing enough to feel optimal. At that point, like I talk to guys who are in their 60s and 70s sometimes, and they have really low testosterone levels, and they want to take something natural, such as my testosterone booster. And I'll be honest, I go, look, we can try it, but given how low your level is and your age, it's unlikely to get you into a range that you're going to feel great. But they're always worried about shutting down their own production. I go, look, your own production is barely registering, right? So you're worried about, it's like someone worrying about quitting a minimum wage job to go make six figures. It's like, well, I don't want to quit my minimum wage job. It's like, yeah, but there's a 6-figure offer right here. Yeah, but I have to quit my minimum wage job to go take that. It's like, yeah, that's what you should do, right? Yeah. It's a way better option.
Yes.
So I think all roads lead to hormone replacement. At some point, you can delay that for a long period of time with healthy living, making sure your sleep's on point, making sure mineral deficiencies are not present. And there's a lot of things you can do naturally. But here's the other thing, and this is something I've thought about a lot. My feeling about something like testosterone, for example, is as you get older, you become desensitized to testosterone. So I actually think you need higher levels of testosterone as you get older than you had when you were younger because you become desensitized.
What do you mean desensitized?
Desensitized meaning that even though let's say you have levels, let's say you're 40 years old and your total testosterone is 800, and that's what it was when you were 25, right? So that's great that you've maintained that level, but you've had that same level for such a long period of time that you don't really notice it anymore. Kind of like alcohol, right? The first time you have a drink, you're like, wow, you get this big buzz. But if you have one drink every day, eventually you're going to get to the point where you don't notice it anymore.
Sure.
First time you have a cup of coffee, you're going to be wired. You're like, wow, this is an amphetamine, like a drug type feeling. But if you have a cup of coffee every day over many years, most coffee drinkers, you don't feel a thing off coffee anymore unless you drink way more than you're used to drinking.
Yeah.
So that's becoming desensitized to something like that. You can become desensitized to anything. You do the same workout regimen over and over again. Your body goes, look, enough. You switch it up a little bit, you start making progress.
So you reckon that applies to testosterone as you get older?
I think it does. And again, this is not based on data or studies I've come across. It's just my personal feeling, having thought about these things. And I've heard some other doctors say, not exactly in the same words, but in a similar regard. So I'll give you one more example. Like, remember let's say when you go through puberty, you're going from no testosterone or not much testosterone to all of a sudden a lot of testosterone.
Yeah, it's
right?
not like it's a little bit. It's like fucking bam, these poor kids.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, every woman looks attractive, and you're thinking,
popping
you want to fight, you want to have sex. And
Yeah.
And then you have no fear of stuff. Let's go cliff diving.
Yeah.
Let's go surfing. I'm going to jump on top of your car. We're going to go car surfing.
Dude,
right?
do you know that the statistic for the most dangerous groups of people in the world are pubescent men / boys because they have all of the testosterone and none of the wisdom. So like if you're ever going to cross the street to avoid a certain demographic of people, it's 15-year-old boys because they don't know what they're doing. And that just speaks to that exact thing. It's like it's one hell of a drug, Yeah.
Well, that's what's interesting about hormone replacement for older men is that if they get on testosterone in their 50s or 60s, now they can have higher testosterone levels than they had when they were teenagers. But you have the life experience and possibly wisdom, because you don't always get wise just because you've been alive. I'll come back to that point in a second. But back to this point of when you go through puberty and your testosterone goes way up, you're extremely sensitized to testosterone at that stage.
This is
a new experience for you, right? This is a new experience going, wow. All of a sudden, you're getting morning erections. You're getting an erection when a wind blows too hard, right? You even think about sex, you're getting an erection. There's always those funny jokes about some kid getting an erection in his high school class, and the teacher's like, "Hey, come to the front of the room and address this." You're like, "No, I can't stand up right now."
Yeah.
Right? You're getting erections when you want it, and you're getting erections when you don't want it. Yeah. The tragic thing about life is, as men get older, now you're having difficulty getting erections when you do want it often. You're certainly not getting it when you don't want it.
Yeah.
So you're extremely sensitized. So when your testosterone is that high, more importantly, you're extremely sensitive to the testosterone that you're experiencing. And that's why, you have erections on command, and you're just, you don't think of consequences that much because you think everything is possible. You're like, nah, I can make this happen.
Yes.
I can jump off this building and land. I'm not going to hurt myself. Just have that wild state. So that's when you go through it. Now imagine that level, imagine the best case scenario is you're maintaining that level of testosterone you had at that young age over the course of 20 years. Are you really going to feel the same with that same level of testosterone after 20 years as you did when you first experienced it? I don't think so. I think because at that point you've gotten used to it. But that's the best case scenario. The more likely scenario is that your testosterone levels go down as you get older. So when you're 40, you don't have anywhere near as much testosterone as you did when you were 25 or in your 20s. When you're 50, even less, and you're 60, even less. So not only are you're desensitized to testosterone, but you're also producing way less than you used to make. That's why some TRT doctors, they don't look at reference. They think reference ranges are a waste of time. And I think reference ranges are a waste of time largely too when you look at blood work, because reference ranges are just a statistical they're just a statistical analysis of everyone who's ever gotten, or a statistical average rather of everyone who's ever gotten tested, right? Yeah. So like 500 men went and got their testosterone tested. Here's the range. Okay, well, that doesn't say anything about what's optimal for you, even if you're in that range. So, and then the range is, let's say for total testosterone is 300 to 1100. That's a pretty big range.
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge range.
So if you're at 305, you're normal. It's like, 305, you're normal. Let's wait until you're below 300, right?
Yeah, but because you might Western feel medicine like shit.
Western medicine is always, let's wait until the problem gets bigger before we do anything about it.
Yeah.
Your total testosterone is 300. The doctor's taking 2 seconds to skim your blood work, and they're like, everything's in the normal range. Normal doesn't mean optimal. No, optimal is what we need to know.
And that's a personal thing, isn't it? You have to be able to say,
exactly.
How do you feel about your experience?
Yeah, you may need to be way above 1100 to feel that too, because that's just the statistical average of people who've gotten tested. Who gets tested? People that feel fantastic? No, it's people who don't feel that great. How many young men, when they feel fantastic, are going and getting their testosterone levels?
Wow, that's a great point, man. Yeah.
Maybe more now because people are more educated on it. But my generation, no one got their testosterone level tested. None of us were drinking beers in college, having a good time, going, man, wonder what my testosterone levels are. You just assumed they were high.
Yeah, I feel great. I'm going to check what my T levels are.
Yeah. But the reality is that you may never have had the best testosterone levels, even when you were young. So none of us have gotten tested, but even that number may not have been that great just because of your genetics or whatever reason. But what I'm saying is, like, some people naturally have higher testosterone levels and they're way more driven, they're way more athletic. And you may not have had those levels, but you can have those levels through exogenous means later, which is what's interesting. Now you can take your testosterone up as high as necessary to address those symptoms. But so some doctors, they look at reference ranges and they go, it doesn't really matter if you fall within that range if you don't feel good. And feeling good means that your sex drive is good, your mood is good, your zeal. More important than your sex drive, your mood, you just want to be alive. Your mood, your
energy for life.
Because depression is huge, right? Depression is, especially among men, is way bigger than anyone thinks it is.
Yeah,
I would say a lot of people walk around with depression and they suffer in silence, because they feel inadequate talking about it. Yeah. They don't talk to their friends about it. They don't talk to their family about it. And if they do, they get a lot of bad advice, such as, it's like, what are you depressed about? You got this, you got that, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about depression. And the big one is that it's always predicated on circumstances. Circumstances can be irrelevant to depression if it's biochemical depression. So like circumstantial depression is more sadness, in my opinion, than depression. Biochemical depression means that you're depressed no matter what is going on in your life.
That's a really good point. There are times when you should be depressed. If you're grieving or if you've had some kind of loss or an injury or something like that, you should be depressed. And that should be a transient state of being. But if you don't, if you, exactly as you just pointed out, if you don't have anything like that and you're just really struggling with your life and people can say to you, what do you got to be depressed about? And you can even say to yourself, why am I even depressed? Well, then perhaps it is a biochemical issue and there's something going on in your lifestyle that is suppressing your hormone health, which in turn can make you depressed enough to potentially want to take your own life. That's fucking dark, but it's also exciting to know that we can do something about that. Right. That's the key. And the problem is, though, is you go to a professional, you're going to get put on antidepressants, which just numb the problem. Yeah. And look, I know some people that are on antidepressants and they say it's a life changer. So I'm not saying that people shouldn't get on antidepressants. I just don't think it should be the first course of action, because it doesn't address the underlying reasons why you're depressed. No, it doesn't.
And then they have a lot of side effects. Yeah, they have a lot of side effects too. And I think it's just a quick solution for the provider. It's like, you're depressed, boom, just take this pill, see you in a month, see how things are going. Yeah. And it doesn't get to why, if you have a depleted hormonal profile, just throwing an antidepressant on top of it is not going to make a difference. Plus, it's just going to numb you to that.
We all know people who are on antidepressants and they're still depressed. Like
exactly.
It's not anywhere
Now,
near
the problem, though, is that most people go to general practitioners, and general practitioners, they don't know jack shit about hormones, right? Most doctors are worthless when it comes to hormones. They don't know anything.
They don't even know shit about food.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't even know anything about proper nutrition. They're definitely not going to know anything about hormones.
Yeah.
And when you bring up hormones, they'll bring up a lot of antiquated information, such as, oh, you don't want to raise testosterone. That causes prostate cancer, which is completely untrue.
Yeah,
it's based on erroneous, antiquated information where basically a high level of testosterone caused by like one person in a study to develop prostate cancer. Now they think it causes that for everyone. It's completely incorrect. The thing about prostate cancer, I won't go on too much of a tangent with this, is, okay, prostate cancer, it only requires a small amount of testosterone to fuel prostate cancer. So whether you have a large amount of testosterone or a small amount of testosterone is irrelevant. It only requires a small amount. It's like watering a plant, right? If I pour this cup into the plant and then I pour a bucket into the plant, okay, I'm over flooding the plant with water, but it's only going to absorb the same amount that it would have absorbed from the cup or the bucket. The rest is just excess that's just going to be sitting there for a while. So prostate cancer is the same way. That's why one of the treatments for prostate cancer is they take your testosterone down to 0 for a while.
Do they really?
As a way, yeah. And then I don't know all the details about this, but I know they put you on drugs that take your testosterone levels down to 0 because any amount of testosterone is going to fuel it at that point.
Wow.
And then hopefully you recover and then they can bring your testosterone levels back up. But the thing about prostate cancer also is that my understanding is that it's not as aggressive as a lot of other cancers, and that most men will actually die with prostate cancer, but not from prostate cancer.
Interesting.
So I'm not saying people shouldn't get treated. I'm not an expert on cancer, but I'm just saying that you should do a lot of research on something like this. You don't want to just go to one doctor and get that person's opinion. Go to a variety of people that work on this condition and get a cohesive opinion rather than just one person.
To your point of how the myth that raising testosterone levels, whether it be naturally or unnaturally, will cause prostate cancer, it's hard for me not to draw the conclusion that will affect pharmaceutical profits in other avenues. But what I mean is, like it just, I'm just so skeptical of that whole pharmaceutical business model that once you start to see that, you can draw the dots everywhere, man. Like to be well, we can't have people taking, whether it be natural supplements or hormone replacement therapy to raise their testosterone because that's going to improve their mood and that's going to take them off a whole bunch of other pharmaceuticals that we sell.
Right.
Now, maybe that's just a cynical way of looking at it, but it just seems as though that's a pretty obvious conclusion to draw. Like, dude, talking about what we were saying before I'm an asthmatic. I have been as long as I can remember. And the amount of doctors that I've been to and different doctors and asked about medications and asked about what I can do to get to the cause. Like, why do I get asthma? What can I do to stop myself from having asthma? The only thing a doctor has ever said to me is take this medication, take this corticosteroid. You can take it inhaled. There's a tablet form that you can take, but you got to be careful with that because it may make you want to kill yourself, which is a real thing.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because I sing as well, so I can't take too much of the inhaled one because it literally thins your vocal cords and just ruins your voice over time. So I've always been on this juggling act of trying to not take too much oral corticosteroid asthma preventative medication. And never has a doctor told me anything other than that. But in the last 2 years, I learned about this thing called the Buteyko breathing method, which essentially, you probably already know about this. Tell me if you do, is basically the rule, the very compact version of the methodology is only breathe through your nose. You essentially, the only time I breathe through my mouth now is when I'm speaking or if I'm singing. But otherwise, I trained myself to only breathe through my nose, even when I'm working out, and it has completely overhauled my health. I take about 90% less asthma medication than I used to before training myself to do this. And it's the
That's
same.
incredible.
It's incredible, dude. It really is. It's changed my life. And it's the same.
I've heard similar stories from other asthmatics. Exactly what you just said, doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, one thing, and this is on a little tangent, but I think you'll find it interesting, is that I've learned is about it's a lot of the asthma attacks or issues with asthma come from hyperventilation, and that doesn't mean you have to be. It just means more breathing than you were just doing. So, for instance, the things that trigger me are laughing, sneezing, and exercise. And also, like, if I get up in the night, let's say I need to go to the bathroom, or which by the way, I do way less after changing my breathing, or if from an air conditioned room to outside because it's hot where I live, those kind of things, your breathing rate, my breathing rate changes quite a bit. It's not a drastic physical thing, but it is changing. The amount of breaths I was doing changes, and it's that hyperventilation that causes constriction and causes the asthma response. And so by doing this Buteyko breathing, the thing that I do now, instead of taking my salbutamol or whatever it is, the Ventolin inhaler for a rescue, which I used to take all the time, dude. I was taking it multiple times every day because I didn't want to take the preventative. Instead of doing that, I exhale out my nose, I hold my breath for 10 to 12 seconds, feeling some air hunger, and then I calmly breathe in my nose again into my diaphragm, and I'll do that 2 to 3 times. Asthma goes away. Rarely it doesn't work, but usually that works just as well as having to take a Ventolin inhaler. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And no doctor ever told me that.
Those kind of breathing techniques can be really good for just inducing relaxation too. So if you're in a stress state, and you want to just calm yourself. Or like maybe you're about to give a speech to a big audience and you just want to calm your nerves a bit. Those kind of breathing techniques make a big difference too.
It's huge. Yeah, it's profound. Anyway, look, that's the thing that's interesting. Yeah, no doctor ever told me anything about that. And it's, I had to get to.
Yeah, I don't have a very positive opinion of a lot of doctors. And I know some great doctors like my friend Dr. Mark Gordon, my friend Dr. Julio Garcia. He's retired out here, but these are great guys, incredible doctors, extremely knowledgeable. But they go way beyond just medical school training. And I think that the doctors that are really good, they take the time to go beyond medical school training and they learn about nutrition because they realize how crucial it is to your overall health. I mean, to not address nutrition when it comes to someone's health is just absurd.
It is.
And to not address sleep, right? Like sleep quality, nutrition, getting outside, sunshine, extra daily activity, because I look at daily activity as different than working out. Like lifting weights, that's working out. Interval training, that's working out. And those are fun things and those are important things. But then daily activity is important too. Because I know people, and you probably know people like this. I know people who love working out at the gym, but outside of that, they don't do anything activity-wise. They don't go hiking. They don't go walking. They just sit around as much. Some of them are paranoid that if they have too much activity outside of their workouts, it's going to take away from their progress.
They're going to lose their gains.
I always found that amusing because the whole point of getting stronger and more resilient, at least in my opinion, is that so that you can enjoy other activities more efficiently, right? It's like you're in great shape, so now you can go hiking as opposed to you're in great shape, but you don't want to go hiking because that might ruin your workout.
It's purely aesthetic at that point, isn't it? Yeah.
But daily activity, like going for a long walk every day, there's like these simple things that everyone can do that have a profound effect. One of my friends who's a trainer, he made a really good post. He talked about how, if you don't work out at all and you start working out once a week, that's going to make a big difference. And you're going to notice a lot of progress because you're going from 0 to 1 workout a week. Now, look, if you work out 4 times a week and you reduce it to 1, it's going to go in the other direction, right? But if you've never worked out at all, sometimes we have to look at people that are just total beginners, or you have to look at their time constraints and go, hey, let's get that 1 workout a week for 3 months, right? We won't even worry about 2. Let's just get you consistent with that 1 workout. And then after a while, they go, hey, you know what? That 1 workout's not that bad. I think I can squeeze in another one. Now they're doing 2. But in addition to that, you get your daily activity up. You go from 2,000 steps a day walking to 5,000. 5,000 is not much if you're used to doing 10,000. It's a regression. But if you're only doing 2,000, now you're doubling your activity. And these things make a big difference. And then what we're trying to do is build consistent habits as well. because these things have to become a habit for you to sustain it over the long haul. So I think sometimes we look at overhauling things before we take action. Like, okay, I'm going to go from unhealthy eating to just perfect eating.
Yes.
And once you go from unhealthy eating to adding in some healthy foods and then start squeezing out some of those unhealthy foods, start with having like one healthy meal a day or just one healthy item, a day, depending on how. Now, these aren't the kind of people I want to work with. I want to work with people that are at a good level and they want to go to an elite level. But I think when we work with people that are at this really nascent stage, it's like, let's just make these small changes and build from there.
Well, I think that you're touching on something that perhaps people need to embrace a little more, is that it's not anyone can do something for 2 weeks. You get all excited and you're pumped and you commit to it for 2 weeks and you go 100% and go extreme for 2 weeks. But that's not what it's about. If you want to change your life, you have to make lifelong habit changes. Yeah. And to do that at 100%, it's almost certainly not going to work long term.
Yeah, you're better off working out once a week and maintaining that for the entire year than working out 5 times a week, as you said, for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you just don't work out at all. Yeah. I think sometimes people have this all or nothing attitude. They go, look, if I'm not going to the gym or working out 3 or 4 times a week, I'm just not going to bother at all. I'm just not going to do anything. Yeah. And that doesn't make any sense either. I go, why don't you just do once a week? It's like, if I'm not eating healthy at every single meal, I'm just not going to bother. Yeah. Like, try to just eat healthy as often as, just start eating healthy once a day to get into the habit of it. Yeah. Because once you start eating healthier meals, you're going to start feeling better. You're not going to want that unhealthy stuff after a while. Once you start adding activity, you're going to feel better with activity. You're going to want to start doing more. You're going to crave it. It's going to start happening organically. This is how I got into fitness this way as a young man, because I was a teenager. I was drinking a lot. I was doing a lot of drugs. I was having a good time going to concerts. I wasn't trying to be healthy. But once I started working out and I started feeling better and I started noticing some muscle development and I started eating cleaner because I wanted to have better workouts. And I noticed that the better fuel I gave my body, the better performance I had. And then you start building it from there over time. Over time, you start fine tuning that. But just getting into the habit of it, you have to start somewhere.
So when did you, at what point did you start getting intrigued about hormone optimization and learning about that? Because you've been on this path for a while now, right?
Oh yeah, a long time. It's interesting to me to see now how prolific just the word hormone optimization is, or the words hormone optimization. Now it's something a lot of people talk about, and I'm glad that it's way more mainstream.
You were the
Still
first
a lot of bad
person
information
that I
out
ever
there.
heard talking about it for men. What was it? Probably almost 15 years ago when I first came across
I would say around
your
2006 is when I started really researching it, and maybe a little bit earlier, maybe 2005, but 2006 is when I started integrating it into my kettlebell workshop. So I would do a kettlebell workshop and I go, okay, let's take a lunch break. Now, while you guys are eating lunch, I'm going to talk about some interesting things I've been looking at. And what would happen is no one wanted to go back to kettlebells. They just wanted to talk about this more, because I would start talking about, hey, if your hormones are out of balance, you're going to start feeling like this. You're going to wake up, you have no energy, and then you have energy in the middle of the night and you can't go to sleep. And you're tired all the time. And people in the audience are going, I feel all of those things that he's talking about. And I didn't realize there was anything I could do about it. But forget kettlebells, let's just keep talking about that. It'd be like people couldn't get enough of this information. And honestly, it was shocking that not too many people in the fitness industry were integrating this into it, because it was so crucial for your performance. But what really got me down the hormone optimization path is I had a really bad case of pneumonia in 2002, and I lost like 20 pounds of muscle. I felt horrible. It took months to recover from that. So I go, look, I need to make myself way more resilient. I was dealing with a lot of stress at the time, just financial stress, personal life stress. And I think it was just a conglomeration of all these different things, of a perfect storm that just created this extremely unhealthy situation of just developing the pneumonia. Pneumonia could be life-threatening. Brutal. No joke. Yeah. So after I recovered from that, I started looking into how to feel better. But the other reason is that, I've had lifelong depression. I've always dealt with depression, even as a young man. And when I started getting into hormones, it started talking about how important hormones are for just making yourself more resilient. But more and more, I came across the message of how profoundly correlated hormones are with your mood. Because DHEA is the ultimate stress management hormone. So when your DHEA levels are really low, your cortisol levels tend to be really high. And when your cortisol levels are really high, your testosterone levels going to be really low. So when you're in this adrenaline type state, sometimes you're in this adrenaline type state and you think it's high testosterone. You're like, man, I'm all amped up. I took this pre-workout drink. I'm ready to go destroy. Now, here's a common experience with pre-workout drinks, right? They're stimulants. So they get you just riled up. So on the drive over to the gym, you're going, I'm going to destroy this workout, right? I'm going to go there and lift every weight they got. And then you find that after a couple of sets, you're already tired.
Yeah.
Because you just burned all of this adrenaline. Yeah. You know what I find as a music guy, you'll find this interesting too, is, I love intense music, thrash metal, hardcore, death metal. I love all that kind of music, especially when I'm working out.
Yeah, bro.
But what I found is that it's better if I don't listen to that kind of music on the way to the gym because it gets your adrenaline up, right? And it's actually better if you don't listen to it during your warm-up sets either. Wait until your money sets are coming in, your heavier sets.
I see.
Because what I find is that you want to save that adrenaline for when it matters. You don't want to burn all this adrenaline on the drive over to the gym and then you find yourself already tired. So when you take these pre-workout drinks, especially if they have a ton of caffeine, and a lot of them have these pseudo methamphetamine type ingredients so that your heart rate goes to the roof, your heart is ready to explode through your chest.
Yeah.
And you're in this riled up state. You haven't even started your workout yet. Why do I want my blood pressure through the roof? And I haven't even started training yet.
Yeah. It's a
real,
like
you're going into a workout with high blood pressure.
Yeah.
It's like, look, your blood pressure is going to go up from the workout. The last thing I want is high blood pressure before I've even gotten started.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're going to be strong, but at least just speaking personally, I never found it actually had a positive impact on my workouts because it made me fatigued. Before I even started going, I would just feel out of sync.
Can I be honest? I feel the same. Like I've recently had a bit of a battle with caffeine because I think I've been dealing with a bit of adrenal fatigue, just having too much caffeine. But I don't like pre-workout for working out. I like to take it before I do a gig. Because then I sing in.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I sing in this classic rock cover band, and we do.
Oh, okay, cool.
We either do 1 90-minute set or 2 1-hour sets, and so that's and we're singing some pretty high energy stuff, and that's a lot of time to be engaged and to be engaging.
Yeah,
and so I thought, I'll start taking some pre-workout and get a bit of a buzz going, and it'll help my gigs. And I think it does, but I think that I was leaning on it too much because I got to the point where I was just drinking it instead of a coffee. And I was like, I felt like I was a drug addict. I got to the point where
the problem with that stuff is it's more fake energy now, but more real fatigue later. So that's the problem, is that it's not actually energizing your cells. It's not improving your ATP production, right? Like these natural energy reservoirs we go to for intense activities. It's not improving any of those things. What it's doing is basically tricking your brain into thinking that you're in this hyper alert state. It's lowering hormones that cause fatigue and increasing ones that create that adrenaline fight or flight type response. That's what caffeine basically does. And then these other stimulants that are in a lot of pre-workout drinks, they amplify that even further. So you may have better performance initially, but you're going to be way more fatigued. So in other words, if you take one before a workout, let's say you have a great workout, okay, fine. But you're going to be more fatigued after that workout than you would have been if you didn't take anything.
Yeah.
But I bring up pre-workout drinks because I go, when you have a dialed-in hormonal state, you don't need to take anything before you work out. Now, your body's primed and ready to go. If you're going into a workout with good testosterone levels, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, I work out to improve my hormone levels. And it's like, yeah, you can improve insulin sensitivity, leptin sensitivity, things like that. But testosterone and growth hormone do go up after an intense weight training workout, but it only stays up for 30 minutes to an hour. It's not long enough to do anything. To me, it's the sign of a good workout, though. So I don't think it's entirely useless. I think that if your testosterone levels go up after a workout, that's a good thing, because instead of your cortisol levels going through the roof, your thriving hormones went way up.
So,
But if you have low testosterone, it doesn't stay up long enough to have any profound benefit.
Oh, wow.
You can't just have high testosterone or higher testosterone for 30 minutes and then it goes back to baseline, because it goes back to baseline. So I don't think you can rely on workouts as a way to address low testosterone levels.
So it doesn't stay up systemically.
No, it doesn't. And look, your hormones go up and down throughout the day anyway. So it's not as if you just, your testosterone may be higher in the morning than it is in the evening, and that's a good thing. It should be high in the morning. Cortisol should be high when you wake up. You want high cortisol levels when you wake up because that's what gets you up and gets you going. Cortisol's if you don't produce cortisol, you die. So cortisol is an essential hormone.
It's not the bad guy, yeah.
But what you don't want is cortisol high in the evening when you're trying to unwind and go to sleep. So sometimes with people with adrenal fatigue is they wake up with low cortisol, and then they're just dragging all day. And then finally in the evening, it just kicks in, the cortisol. And now they can't go to sleep at night. And now this vicious cycle begins. You can't sleep, so you're tossing and turning all night. And now you wake up even more fatigued.
Fried.
So what we need to do is flip that cortisol curve. And then there's actually a nutritional intervention that's useful, a nutritional supplement intervention, which I learned from Charles Poliquin, where you take standardized licorice, you take it in the morning, take it in the afternoon. 10 days. And what this does is it flips that cortisol curve so that your cortisol is high in the morning and then naturally goes down in the evening.
Wow.
And you can sleep well at night. And people that I've had used this intervention, and I've used it myself many times because I go through periods of adrenal type fatigue as well, where I go, man, I just had 7-8 hours of sleep and I'm waking up and I'm tired. Why am I tired? I haven't even done anything yet. And you just have that low morning cortisol. You get that morning cortisol higher. It's naturally lower in the evening, and then you're going to sleep way better. And then eventually, after about 10 days, you don't even need to keep taking this. Your cortisol curve has been reset so that it's naturally high in the morning, lower in the evening, and you're good to go. But things like, but a lot of times people medicate with coffee and caffeine. Like I know people are going, hey, don't talk to me until I've had my first cup of coffee type people, right? Like they're worthless. And the problem with that is it's imagine if your car, you have a dead battery, and instead of getting it replaced, you just jumpstart your car every time you want to use it. So when you wake up, you go, okay, let me go. I have to drive somewhere. Like, oh yeah, my battery's dead. So let me just get the jumper cables out. And then every time you go somewhere and then you turn your car off, you just you whip out the jumper cables. Like you ask someone to give you a jump, or you have one of those self jumper kits where you can jump your car anywhere. And that sounds like a very inefficient way to drive a car, though. You need to replace that battery. So in the case of our own bodies, we can't replace anything necessarily, but we need to rejuvenate the organs that are going to make us feel better.
We want the battery to be to juice itself. We want our own.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like pre-workout drinks either, because if you're eating well and you're sleeping well, you should go into a workout energetic, naturally. You shouldn't need to take anything. I think some people are just addicted to the kick. They like to feel something.
Sure.
They like to get that stimulant because there's no drug that's more addictive than stimulants. So I think, and if people disagree with that, it's like, okay, just stop drinking coffee today. Never drink it again for the rest of your life. Good luck with that. Most people are more willing to give up alcohol than they are caffeine type thing, coffee. Because a lot of people, let's be honest, they're so unhealthy, they couldn't even get through the day without those fake energy hits that they take throughout. But it comes with a cost. Eventually you're not going to feel anything off of these stimulants because you're so burned out. I don't know if you remember a fat loss drug, ephedrine, that was really popular in the 90s. Yeah, ephedrine used to be everywhere, right? They used to have that fat loss stack of ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin, and people would take that. And it worked extremely well, but it worked extremely well because it shut off your appetite. And your energy is through the roof, or your fake energy, I should say, is through the roof, and your appetite is non-existent. So you're going to be way more active, and you're not going to eat as much. Of course, you're going to lose weight using these things. But the problem, I worked with a fitness competitor early in my career who had serious adrenal fatigue. This is when I first started getting into hormone optimization. I started talking about it, and she was one of the people that this resonated with. So I go, let me see if I can help you out with this stuff. And she showed me her regimen, and she was addicted to ephedrine because she used it for so many competitive cycles to keep her active, to keep her appetite under control. But what happened is she used it so much that she said she couldn't even get her day going until she took a pill while she was still in bed, waited for it to kick in, and then she would get out of bed,
Ooh.
right? And she did that just to feel normal. And she wasn't getting like some profound heart racing kick off it.
She used to get up to zero.
Yeah, exactly. So her adrenals were entirely wiped out.
Cooked,
and
man.
that's where restorative herbs such as ashwagandha, rhodiola, things like that, these are Korean ginseng, these are Siberian ginseng more specifically. These are adaptogenic herbs that help just rejuvenate your body so that you're not going to be so reliant on these stimulants. They don't have any stimulant type effect, but they help improve real energy reservoirs so that your natural energy levels go up. So you're not so reliant on these fake energy levels. But these kind of things can take time, especially given how depleted you are. For someone like her, you just gradually reduce the ephedrine, increase adrenal rejuvenating protocols like the herbs I mentioned. And over time, you're able to get away from these things.
What kind of time frame are we talking? Like how long does...
I mean, in her case, it took about 4 months before she started feeling normal. Yeah, before she was off of ephedrine completely. But it was, I think it was something ridiculously high, like 50 milligrams twice a day, which is a lot. And then it went down to 25 milligrams twice a day. And then it was like 10 milligrams twice a day. And then it was down to 5 twice a day. And then it was like, hey, I don't actually need this anymore. But she was so addicted to ephedrine that it didn't even have the appetite reducing effects anymore. So she was putting on a ton of body fat after this competition. And that eventually evened out as well. So the thing about healing is that it can take a long time. And it can take 3 months in the big scheme of things is not a long time. But it feels like a long time when you're going through it. If you're dealing with serious depression, and
especially if you've got withdrawal as well.
Right. If someone's dealing with serious depression and you tell them, hey, I think I know what to do here, but it's going to take 3 months, they're thinking, I don't know if I can get through this week. It's like, I'm thinking about killing myself right now. I don't have 3 months to deal with this kind of thing. And that's why, getting back to your question of why did I get into hormones and all that, what really caught my attention with hormones is the fact that it had such a profound effect on mental health more than anything else. Because I think everything we do in life is to improve our mental health, whether we realize it or not. Working out, sure. We want, working out, we want our bodies to feel better, no doubt, or look better rather. We want to be stronger. We want our bodies to look better. But why do we want to be stronger and look better? Because it makes us feel better about ourselves.
Because we'll feel better if we look sexier, if we look stronger.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you like the way you look, that's automatically going to improve your mental outlook, right? Yeah. Why wouldn't it? If you feel more confident because you're like, you know what, I'm strong, I'm physically strong, I know I can handle situations.
Yeah.
You're going to feel more confident just as a result of that. So you're going to feel better mentally. The mental health benefits of physical training and healthy living are the most profound effects of it, or benefits of it. That's where the real money is more than anything else. Because in anything in life, we want to feel better. Same thing with hormones. Hormones, we want to optimize our hormones because we want to feel better. We want our mood to be better.
Yes.
So when you feel more resilient, when you feel more driven, especially as men, it's important to feel driven.
Yes.
When you don't feel motivated, you're not in a happy place. At least I'm not. So if I'm really demotivated, like I don't really feel like doing anything, that's not coming from a happy place. That's not me going, oh man, I feel so great. I don't feel like doing anything. We want to be motivated. And things such as DHEA, things such as testosterone, things such as DHT, these are all motivational type hormones. So when we have them in the optimal ranges, we're naturally more motivated. And by the way, there's no such thing as a male or female hormone. So these hormones are equally as important for women. They just need way less. Estrogen is extremely important for men, right? Sure. If you drive estrogen levels too low, for a man, you're going to have serious depression. You're going to have no sex drive. You're going to have no sex function. You're not going to be able to get an erection if your life depended on it. If your estrogen levels are too low. So we don't want to get estrogen down to zero and testosterone as high as possible. You need to have healthy levels of each of these hormones.
It's funny, we tend to think of women, these things like they're money. More is better. Yeah. It's not like that. It's a balance. Exactly. We need. It's all an infinity loop of getting a right balance that will constantly change and evolve as we go through life. And what you've been talking about is how when you go through puberty, it spikes and then gradually it just goes down no matter what your lifestyle is. I mean, something that I'm really intrigued about is what are some of the things for for people that are going to accelerate the dysregulation of their hormones, whether they be male or female? What are some of those things that are like just big red flags for like, hey, look, you can stop doing this now, and it will help?
Well, number one is alcohol. Alcohol is terrible for your overall health, and even moderate drinking. There's no safe dose of alcohol. Now, a lot of people are going to be disheartened to hear this, but if hormone optimization is a priority for you, you want to feel better, you have to cut alcohol out completely. Not just drink every once in a while, out completely. Down the line, you can have a drink from time to time, but if you're in a really imbalanced state, you want to cut out alcohol. I mean, alcohol, just one drink converts testosterone to estrogen. It's out, and it doesn't matter what the alcohol is. It lowers your natural testosterone production. It lowers growth hormone production. And that's just from one drink. So imagine people just on a bender every weekend, or people that have a couple drinks a night and think they're okay. So alcohol's got to go. If you care about your overall health, there's no safe level of alcohol. All this nonsense, the French paradox, where they go, hey, what about the French? They drink wine, this and that. That's all nonsense. Believe me, cutting out alcohol will only improve your health. It's not going to have a deleterious effect on it. So if you go from your one glass of red wine every night to cutting that out, it's only going to improve. It's going to improve your insulin sensitivity. It's going to improve your leptin sensitivity. It's going to improve your anabolic hormones, your sex hormones, all of it. It's also going to improve your sleep. And that's one of the other reasons why alcohol is so bad for your hormones, that just one drink has a really negative impact on your sleep quality. And sleep is everything. You show me people that have poor sleep quality, I'll show you someone that looks way older than they actually are. Now, I have friends that are like my age who look 10 years older because their sleep quality is so poor. They're way more wrinkled, got these big bags under your eyes, and you're just lethargic. You have this lethargic look to you. So like alcohol is a big one that people can cut out. Improving your sleep quality is crucial. A lot of people just, they think sleep is negotiable. They think it's or they think they're special. They go, you know what? I don't need 8 hours of sleep. I do fine with just 4. And that comes with a cost. That comes with a big cost. I guarantee you, no one does fine with just 4 hours of sleep. You might be existing in spite of that, but eventually it's going to catch up to you. And it's going to catch up to you in a serious health issue.
Yeah.
You may have a heart attack out of nowhere. You may develop some other serious health issue. And it could be just from years and years and years of poor sleep or no sleep, or just being in a deprived state. Then there's other things such as environmental toxins, and that's a tough one to really address because, I mean, there's billions of chemicals here in the U.S. and Australia actually is considered one of the most toxic countries out there in terms of chemical pollutants. Yeah. So I
didn't know that.
These environmental toxins are hard to manage because they're so ubiquitous and they're so profoundly out there that you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
Only thing you can do is, if you eat as healthy as possible, you have a good amount of fiber in your diet, that'll help remove some of these things out of your body. Yeah. That one I try not to worry about too much. Let's focus on the things we can do something about, not worry so much on everything. Because a lot of these chemicals aren't even categorized. There's so many of them out there, and there's such an abundance of them. So the alcohol is a big one. The other one is stress. And stress can be a nebulous term as well, because people are going, well, look, life is stressful. I mean, my job is stressful. I've got this going on. And I get all that. And the goal is not to get stress down to zero, but the goal is to eradicate stress that you can eradicate, such as not wasting a lot of time on social media. Social media is incredibly bad for your mental health.
Oh, man.
Right? People that are scrolling Instagram for 4 hours every night. Now, have you noticed that everyone is on their phone no matter where you go? Mm-hmm. You as a musical performer, how many people in the audience are on their phone the whole time while you're performing?
Well, what's an interesting thing
ridiculous.
Is that it is insane. But what's a really beautiful thing about the gigs that I do is that there's not that much of it, and it's rare for me to see a group of people who are. I think it's because it's classic rock, so it's the audience that I play to are usually
get an older audience.
Yeah, they're like 40 and up usually. Obviously, there's younger people, but they're in the moment, and it's a really beautiful thing. And I've noticed how rare that is. You go anywhere where anyone is waiting, everyone's on their phone. Everyone, because it's too stimulating.
The worst is when you see couples at dinner together and they're both on their phone the whole time.
Yeah, man,
that's really depressing.
Yeah,
here's the problem with this. This is not just like aberrant behavior that can be adjusted. This is an addiction.
Yeah.
People are addicted to looking at their phone. They're not looking at their phone because they're bored or they don't have anything else. They're addicted to looking at their phone. The second they hear that bing, they have to look at it. Here's what social media does to you. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you start scrolling through your phone. You're getting these dopamine hits every time you look at stuff. Doesn't matter what you're looking at. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's something that is, it doesn't matter if it's someone saving someone's life or someone that's just posting some narcissistic nonsense. It doesn't matter. You're getting a dopamine hit. Now, what happens is you've gotten a dopamine hit doing something that required no effort on your part whatsoever.
Unearned
so now
pleasure.
when you try to go do something that requires effort, let's say I want to write an article after looking at Instagram for an hour, that seems like an insurmountable task now because I just got a dopamine hit doing nothing. So why do I want to put in effort to get a dopamine hit?
Wow,
now it seems like a big waste of energy for me to put in a lot of effort to do something to get a dopamine hit. Why do 25 push-ups to get a dopamine hit when I can just look at the phone for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 4 hours? So I think that's another big one.
Dude, have you ever tried to detox from your phone? I did.
I do it all the time. Yeah. Not only have I tried, I do it all the time. I delete. I go long periods of time without. First of all, the only one I have left is Instagram. I got rid of Facebook and Twitter a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think about getting rid of Instagram all the time.
Me too.
It's somewhat useful for my business, so I still use it.
Yeah.
But if it weren't, I would get rid of it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, well, that's how we connected. And that's the only reason I keep it because I got rid of it off my phone for a long time.
Yeah.
And I
that's
only
the key
had it
right
on my
there. Get rid of it off your phone.
Yeah, well, I had it on my iPad. So I had dedicated times to go on Instagram and to message people and do those kind of things and to keep it more professional. And then when I was chilling or at work or whatever I was doing, I didn't have it available. And that worked really well. But dude, the amount of times I felt myself reaching for my phone to go to where Instagram used to be was amazing. It was appalling how much, and I really was able to observe, wow, I'm addicted to this. This is a strong, drug-like impulse. And it was, and it's powerful, dude.
Well, you actually had that epiphany. Most people don't. Most people don't even think they're addicted to it. But just tell them, like, okay, don't use it for a month. Yeah. They're gonna lose it. They're not gonna bother to do it. Because again, it's almost as if the art of being bored has been lost. Yes. And that's not a good thing. It's good to be bored from time to time. I grew up in a generation where sometimes you had to stand in line for an hour to do something. And so all you have are your thoughts. You don't have anything to distract you. All you can do is observe what's going on around you and think about stuff in your head. That was it. Or you talk to people in that line. That's it. You couldn't just
heaven forbid we talk to a stranger.
Yeah, exactly. You actually had to talk to people. Real world interactions. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Now, no one ever has to be bored. Now, no one ever is bored now because entertainment is right there. Hell, you could be at a stoplight waiting. You can check your phone.
I've done it.
You're, oh yeah, I've done it too. I don't want to sound like I'm so above all this. Like I'm not falling prey to it. I fall prey to this stuff all the time too, which is why I do the detoxes you're talking about, because it's basically a dopamine detox. Because you don't want to get so many hits of dopamine from things that have no value to the point where you don't chase things anymore that do have value.
Oh, that's a really
that's
good
the thing.
point.
It's like dopamine hits should require effort. You should actually have to earn it, because then that creates a good addictive behavior where you're going, okay, I'm going to work out again because I want to get that feeling again. I'm going to cook a meal because I want to get that feeling again. I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to write an article, or I'm going to do whatever it is. I'm going to pick up the phone and call a friend, because no one calls each other anymore too. Now it's all text and messaging and things like that. So it's not, and I don't believe that everyone is so busy that they don't have time for any of this. I go, do you have an Instagram account? Then you're definitely wasting time on there. And you're not just wasting 5 minutes. And like anyone who has an Instagram account who actually uses it, it's in their phone. They're on there for at least an hour every day. And that's my guess. And otherwise, why do you even have it in your phone? That means you're not using it at all, which is a good thing. But if you're not using it at all, there's no reason to have it. If you have it, you're using it, and you're probably wasting a lot of time on there. But moving on to your points here about interventions, cutting out processed foods, sugar, those are all big ones. Now, these basically healthy eating habits have an effect on your hormones, because every time you eat these really sugary processed foods, it causes an insulin resistance type state, meaning that your blood sugar levels spike so much. Insulin has to drive all that sugar out of your bloodstream and put it into the muscle, liver, and cells. And over time, it gets overburdened doing this to the point where you want to keep insulin sensitive to where you only require a small amount of insulin to drive glucose out of the bloodstream. But if you're constantly causing these insulin spikes, your insulin is going up all the time because you keep inundating your body with garbage foods where it has to drive these chemicals and sugary foods out of your bloodstream as quickly as possible. It basically becomes fatigued. And now you have to basically, before you're able to just open the door, now you have to take a battering ram and break the door open to keep it going. So when the insulin resistance is high, it's like now your pancreas has to create a large amount of insulin because you're no longer sensitive to it to do the same thing that a small amount should be doing.
Sure.
So I mean, these are not profound statements like, oh, wow, you're trying to tell me the food I eat has an effect. Of course, we all know healthy eating is important. And we also know that food is highly addictive and that it's made. Processed foods, rather, are highly addictive. They're made to be addictive. It's just like the phone, just like Instagram is made to be addictive. There's a photo of Zuckerberg walking into an arena, right? And he's walking with purpose. He's not looking at his phone. And everyone around him seated is looking at their phone. And it says winning. It says winning or mission accomplished, something like that. I saw this a long time ago. Because I guarantee you, people like that are not addicted to it. They know how negative it is. They know how perilous it is.
Oh, well, you hear these stories, about guys like Zuckerberg. He's taping up his camera on his phone and on his computer. He does that. Like, they don't let their children use any of these devices or apps. Like that's not an uncommon thing to know to hear about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's wild, man. So we've got the interesting thing too is about the things that you're mentioning. Optimize your sleep, get better sleep, work on your stress levels, whatever you need to do to diagnose what's causing you stress in your life.
Well, just one point on that is just if you can't lower stress, try to get more relaxation activities.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is if you can get a massage regularly, that has a profound impact. People that work out hard, man, if you ever go through an experiment where you get a massage once a week for, let's say you're doing a 12-week intense workout regimen, try getting a massage at the end of each training week. And you will be shocked what a difference that makes in your regimen. It is huge because you're just breaking down all that inflammation that's been built up every week so that it doesn't accumulate as much over the course of that. And more importantly, it's a relaxation strategy. It helps you, go to a spot, sit in a jacuzzi, just go for walks every day. And I have 2 energetic dogs, so I take them for long walks every day. You're getting fresh air, you're getting outside. You're moving around, and then I find that walking is like meditation for me because it gives you a chance to think about stuff. Yeah, to the point where when you're ready to go to sleep, you've already thought for 2 hours, so you're not going to be tossing and turning thinking about stuff because you already thought it all out, for lack of a better metaphor.
You can switch it off.
Got it all out of your system.
Yeah. And alcohol, was the alcohol in your diet? Yeah, with the other ones to
right.
And the interesting thing is, all of these things are. They apply to everything. Anything that it's always the same answer. Like if you when you really come down to it, how do I improve my insert health woe here? It's the same answer, really, which is an interesting thing. It's like it's kind of nowhere near as complex as we make it out.
These are all the basic things.
Yeah.
And then getting blood work done to see where your hormone levels are at. Like I said, statistical ranges can be overstated in terms of the benefits, but if you're at the low end of the range for things such as DHEA, testosterone, pregnenolone, that's definitely not a good thing. I would say most people need to be at the higher end of those statistical ranges.
Yeah,
and even if they feel okay, they'll benefit from that. And you may need to be beyond those statistical ranges, but at least at the higher end of it. Because again, this is just a statistical range of people that have gotten tested. So if you're on the lower end, that's where all the unhealthy people are essentially. So just getting an idea of knowing what's going on with your biochemistry is important. Addressing mineral imbalances, things such as magnesium, selenium, zinc, these are all really important minerals for your thyroid, for your hormones, for your testosterone production, for your immune system. So just taking measures to take way better better care of yourself and understanding what's going on with your physiology. The more you know, the better off you are, because the more action steps you can take.
Yeah, well, so I had planned to get my blood work done before this podcast because I thought it would be interesting to be able to talk to you about some of my markers, but I life just got too hectic, so I wasn't able to get it done. But I'm going to do that and just be able to get a gauge, because I've never done it.
We can do another episode down the line, or if you just want to talk, offline about your results, we can do that too. No problem.
I'd love to chat with you again, man. Yeah, if we can, that would be really interesting, because I think that it's time for me to start paying attention to this, because there's a few things that are happening in my personal life that I think a lot of people will probably be able to relate to around my age as well, that would be really beneficial. Right. And I can, guinea pig myself and hopefully help some other people. Yeah. But it's definitely. Like I've never had my blood work done purely for, I've had it done for things in my life years ago, but I've never gone, I'm going to see where my mineral levels are, where my hormone levels are. I've never done any of that. And I'm starting to, the things you were talking about before, about how I'm just constantly tired. I wake up and it's hard for me to get out of bed. I have brain fog. Yeah. I'm not really very motivated. All of these things that you're mentioning, that you're talking about, and hence why I even reached out to you, because I was like, I want to talk to someone who knows about this stuff, because I think it's affecting me, and I can stab in the dark to try and figure out what it might be. Things like adrenal fatigue, or maybe I think I also have something where like dorsal vagal shutdown in my nervous system, because my responses to stressful situations are just numb. I don't feel anything. I just disappear. And if it's really bad, dude, I'll almost pass out. I had an experience once when I was in Mexico with my wife and a friend, and we got pulled over by the police, and they were trying to extort us, basically, which is a pretty common thing that they do. And they were just trying to get money. And I learned very little Spanish, and my wife and friend knew none. And so I'm driving, I'm in the driver's seat. I'm trying to talk to this policeman. There's a bunch of cops around. There's a bunch of cars pulled over. We're in Mexico. I'm trying to have a conversation with him in the very little Spanish that I know. I'm learning that he's trying to get us to give him money. And I'm like, I start to stand my ground a bit and going, no, we didn't do anything wrong. Then all of a sudden I turned to my wife, and I'm sitting upright, and I was like, I think I'm going to pass out. It was so weird. And I wasn't overly frightened. I wasn't overly stressed, but the situation, obviously something happened in my body where it was like, you need to get out of this situation, dude. This is bad. Yeah. And I didn't, luckily, but I had to just disengage from the conversation and just be like, I think I'm going to pass out. It was wild. It happened when my wife was giving birth. She had a moment where they put the drip in the wrong place in her arm, and her arm blew up like a balloon. Oh no. And I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's bad. And she's in the middle of contractions, and then she saw it, and she then started to freak out. And that was what got me. And I was like, she needs me. I can't do this now. Come on, keep it together. And she's got her arms over me. And I just went, nah, it's going. I said, babe, I'm just going to sit down for a minute. And then I just collapsed. I didn't pass out, but I was like very close to passing out. And anyway, those are extreme examples of something that I believe affects my day-to-day life, my personality, the way that I address conflict, the way that I address just normal situations. And I wonder if it's got something to do with, well, I don't know what it's got something to do with. So that's why I'm kind of trying to figure it out. But the long story short, I'm 38. It's time to figure out what's going on with my hormones. Yeah. And also, it's like a fun experiment too. Why not make yourself more resilient? You can always feel better. You can always be better at something, right? Like you can always get better at your workouts. You can always get better with your mental state. Yeah. So why not try to improve?
just the act of trying to improve is invigorating and builds confidence because you're programming your brain to find solutions.
Yeah.
So instead of dealing with problems and avoiding it and sweeping it under the rug, you're in a solution-oriented state.
Yeah,
and I think just that alone is a positive thing.
And it's interesting too because I think it can happen so slowly that it's like the frog in the cold water that slowly gets boiled to death.
That's right.
He doesn't know. So it happens too slowly for you to realize what's happened. But I can't. When I really look at how I feel, I'm like, I don't feel great, and I used to. If I go back to when I was in my 20s, and I think a first stop would be seeing if I can improve that with my hormonal health.
Yeah.
So I wonder, what would be. What I'm intrigued about is I know that there's obviously you can go straight to like testosterone replacement therapy and all that kind of stuff, and you're injecting into your butt, and that's kind of, from my understanding, that's you for the rest of your life. But what I'm more intrigued about is optimizing my body in order to produce its own testosterone at much better levels first. I think that's more interesting to me. At around my age is when it starts to just naturally, these things just naturally happen if you aren't on top of it, and even if your lifestyle is pretty good, which mine is. I'm a pretty healthy guy. I keep relatively low body fat. I work out as consistently. I eat pretty well. I don't smoke. I smoke a little bit of weed every now and again, like every few weeks. I don't really drink. Like I rarely drink. I don't really party very much. So I'm a pretty healthy guy. So what would be?
Well, here's the thing with these interventions. Okay, first of all, pregnenolone and DHEA. Pregnenolone is basically the mother of all sex hormones. So basically, it's like pregnenolone is the mother, cholesterol is the father. All sex hormones are created from cholesterol. Now, pregnenolone and DHEA are precursors to testosterone, and neither one of these hormones shut down your own production if you take it exogenously. So yes, taking testosterone exogenously for long periods of time, eventually your own production will shut down. But that's not the case with every hormone. So, for example, if you take melatonin, that's not going to shut down your own production of melatonin. You could stop taking melatonin, and your own production of melatonin will just kick right into gear. It won't be down to zero, and then you have to take something to get it back up.
So is melatonin the
things
hormone?
Like DHEA? Sorry, what's that?
Is melatonin the hormone?
Yeah, melatonin's a hormone.
Yeah, right. Yep. I never realized
melatonin's a very effective hormone for it's a very important hormone for your immune system, as well as sleep quality. And it actually helps block the conversion of testosterone to estrogen while you're sleeping as well. So it has multitude of benefits. Yeah, so melatonin's a hormone, DHEA is a hormone, pregnenolone. Now, pregnenolone and DHEA, you can take those exogenously because they're not going to shut down your own production. So that's not the same thing as taking something like TRT. That's a little bit more of a delineated discussion where you have to think about if this is something you want to keep doing. Now, here's the thing about TRT that makes it interesting as well. The shots are way more suppressive than taking testosterone cream is. So the cream is about 50% suppressive as the shots are. So if you took the cream and wanted to get off, your own production would come back up much faster than if you took shots and tried to come back up. And I think the reason why is the way shots are used. Shots are generally, you get them once a week so that you get a big increase in testosterone, and then it goes down over the course of the week. And then you get another big hit. And I think getting this big hit just shuts down your own testosterone production immediately because it's such a big increase immediately. Well, and then it's done so spaced out that you're just going through these rises and falls of testosterone. So I actually don't like the shots for TRT. Now, some people do microdosages.
They were talking about that. There's a bunch of evidence now to say that it's probably better for you to take multiple smaller shots throughout the week.
Yeah, that's the microdosing of the testosterone. And I have friends who do that. So that's basically you take it 3 times a week. Some people take a small amount every single day. I think that's less likely to be suppressive for sure. I think the suppressive is more because of the antiquated way of using it where you take one big hit a week. The cream, what I like about the cream though is you take it twice a day and you take it every day so that your levels are very steady when you do that. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's also way less suppressive. The cream increases DHT more than the shots do. So that's good or bad depending on what you want out of the treatment. So with testosterone, where I'm going with these mechanisms though is that people think that if they start TRT, they're on it for life. And that's not necessarily true. You could try it for a couple of months and decide whether it's a fit for you or not. You do it for 3 months, you'll know whether it's a fit for you or not. Although the benefits increase over time, so you may get more benefits after 6 months, even a year, but you'll have an idea of if this is the direction you want to go in. Are you willing to deal with the inconvenience of putting the cream on twice a day? Are you willing to deal with the inconvenience of taking shots several times a week indefinitely? Are the benefits enough for you? So that's one option right there. Now, there's options that you can take before going down that route too. So just as what can I take to increase my own production of testosterone? And these will work for a while. In my opinion, I think all roads lead to TRT. Like if you live long enough, that's going to be the only thing that works eventually. And honestly, that's a good thing and that's a godsend. It's a godsend that option is there. Because the last thing you want to do is be 60 years old with low testosterone or 70 with low testosterone and feel terrible. Aging is difficult enough. It's similar to, you don't want to be 70 and broke, right? It's hard enough to be 70. You don't want to be broke. You don't want to still be dealing with financial struggles at 70. You just don't, because you have enough other problems going on just from aging at that. So what you don't want to do is be 70 broke and have low testosterone. Ideally, you're 70, you got a good amount of money so you can live comfortably, and you have ideal testosterone. So now you can really enjoy the last stage of your life for as long as possible. But before going down the TRT route, there's a couple things you can do. One, I have a natural testosterone booster product, aggressive strength testosterone booster. I've had it on the market since 2013. It's very effective at ramping up your own production of testosterone. And people look at the testimonials on my website. It actually works. I know the testosterone booster category has a lot of skepticism and also has a lot of negativity from people that have tried products and been extremely disappointed with the lack of results. I get that because most natural testosterone boosters are garbage. The supplement industry overall is extremely scammy, to say the least. And most companies that make testosterone boosters, they don't care if it works or not. They're just looking to make something that's inexpensive to formulate and put all the money into marketing. Most companies, supplement companies, put 10% into research and development and 90% into marketing. What they want is as many one-time hits as possible. They don't care about repeat business. And they don't care about people, about word of mouth. They just want to get as many one-time hits as possible. Now, I'm a small businessman, so I don't have a big advertising budget. Number one, I like to think I have some integrity, so I don't want to sell stuff to people that doesn't work. So let's start there. But number two, I think just for good business purposes, if you make something that actually works and that people have a good experience with, what's going to happen? They're going to use it again, and they're going to tell other people about it. And you can build a successful business just with that. So I think, in my opinion, the most important thing for supplements is that they actually work.
Well, it's
I know that's
a real pity that you have to say that.
Obvious. It seems incredibly over. It's like you're overstating the obvious. But yes, they should actually work. But that's how low the bar is in the industry, where very few people even care if they actually work. Because if they work, you're going to use it, you're going to keep using it, and you're going to tell other people about it. So the way my product works is that it improves levels of that luteinizing hormone that I mentioned earlier, and the brain sends luteinizing hormone to the testicles to ramp up more testosterone production. So this will work for a while. As you get older, this process becomes hampered. So if we can facilitate this process, or we can improve this process, we're going to ramp up your own production of testosterone. And now you don't have to rely on some exogenous thing. Your own production of testosterone is going. Now, I've had people take my product for 12 weeks, and then they take a month or two off, and their levels are still good, even after using it. Now, some ask me, they go, what about taking it for a couple months, and maybe you never have to take it again? And I think that's unlikely, because that's like saying, let me work out for 3 months and then never work out again and maintain the benefits.
Sure.
Now, let me brush my teeth for 3 months and then never brush my teeth again.
It's not
let me eat healthy for 3 months and then just eat whatever I want.
This is not a video game. It's not achievement unlocked and then it stays there.
Yeah, exactly. If you want the benefits of a protocol, you're going to have to keep using that protocol. That's just the way it is. Now, the good news is my product actually works for most users. It's a very low percentage of people that were disappointed with it. So that's a good first step for someone that wants to improve their own production of testosterone.
So what's in it?
If and when that stops working, then the TRT route can be useful.
What's in your concoction? What are you working with?
It's 3 herbs. It's one. The cornerstone ingredient is Bulbine natalensis, which is a South African herb. That's the herb that has the most profound benefit in it. Interestingly enough, the strongest herbs for improving testosterone are African herbs.
Interesting.
So there's Bulbine natalensis. There's another one called Fadogia agrestis.
I've heard of this.
And then there's another one called Mossolaria acuminata. And out of the 3, Bulbine natalensis is the strongest. They all 3 do the same thing. They all work by the same mechanism. Bulbine is just the strongest out of the 3. Fadogia is also very effective. Some people ask me, why don't you just combine all 3 into your product? Well, it's like combining testosterone shots with testosterone cream and pellets, right? You're taking 3 different things that do the same thing. You just pick one. And out of the 3 options, Bulbine is the best one out of these 3 African herbs. There's no point taking 3 herbs that all do the same thing and stacking them together, thinking that there's going to be some synergistic effect, because in actuality, there isn't. If you take too much Bulbine, for example, it'll actually lower your testosterone. So more is not better. You start with a reasonable dosage. You don't say, okay, well, 2 caps isn't working. Let me just go to 5. No, that doesn't work. The 4 is basically the maximum dosage for most people. Beyond that, it starts having what's called a bell curve effect, where it can actually lower your testosterone instead of raising it. Now, exactly why that happens, I'm not sure, but that's the bell curve effect. And the other herb in it is called Mucuna prurines. Oh yeah, but one final point. The reason why I don't stack these 3 African herbs is because if you take too much of one, it has a negative effect. If you take all 3 together, then it's like taking too much of one. So it's not going to be synergistic. It's going to be subtractive instead of additive.
Sure. So it's that balance.
There's no point putting ingredients together where it's subtractive. Now, the second herb I have in there is called stinging nettle root. And stinging nettle root is really cool because it has it's healthy for your prostate. And it also increases free testosterone levels, because we have total testosterone and we have free testosterone levels. Total represents the entire amount of testosterone that you produce. Free represents what you actually have access to. So imagine having $1 million in the bank, but you can only access $10,000. So in actuality, you only have $10,000 because the $1 million is just theoretical. It's like maybe you'll have access to that someday, maybe
tied
you
up
won't.
In assets.
But it's what you you can have. It's what you have access to that matters.
You need cash.
So free testosterone is Free testosterone is the only number that really matters here. Your total testosterone. I mean, I wouldn't, like my friend Dr. Gordon likes to say total testosterone is garbage. You don't even have to bother testing it. Really? But my attitude about total testosterone is that free testosterone represents about 2% of total testosterone. So the higher your total testosterone, the higher your free testosterone can be. So I wouldn't say that total testosterone doesn't matter. I think it does matter, because if your total testosterone is 300 versus your total testosterone being 1200, that's going to have a big effect on what your free testosterone levels can be. If your free testosterone is only 2% of your total, then you want your total to be as high as possible, so that your free subsequently as high as possible as well. But stinging nettle root unbinds testosterone from another hormone called sex hormone binding globulin. Now, sex hormone binding globulin is a transporter hormone. This is what takes testosterone around the body so it can be utilized. Now, the problem, though, is that when you have too much sex hormone binding globulin, it just inhibits this testosterone. It binds it up so it can't be utilized. So sex hormone binding globulin, you don't want it down to 0, but you don't want it too high either, because when it's too high, it just binds to testosterone and makes it inaccessible. So what this stinging nettle root does is that it unbinds that testosterone. It doesn't increase total testosterone, but it unbinds the free testosterone from sex hormone binding globulin so that you have more that you can access. So that's a really interesting herb right there too. It also has benefits on the liver, the kidneys. It has other things too that go on for it. And then the final herb is called Mucuna prurens, and this is an Ayurvedic herb. This is an Indian herb. And in addition to increasing testosterone, what I like about Mucuna is that it increases dopamine. It increases growth hormone a little bit, but it increases dopamine. So a lot of times when people take my product, they say, man, I noticed it on the first dosage. And that's not testosterone because it takes a couple of weeks for you to get an increase in testosterone. But the dopamine effect can happen on the first dose from Mucuna. Mucuna is often used with Parkinson's patients because it works just as well as some of the Parkinson's drugs do for increasing dopamine, not just production, but utilization of dopamine. And dopamine is profoundly beneficial for motivation. So people thought so that this stacked together, you're getting an increase in testosterone, you're getting an increase in dopamine, and not only an increase in dopamine, but utilization of dopamine. And then you're getting an increase in free testosterone. And it also blocks some conversion of testosterone to estrogen. So it's a pretty complete formula.
Yeah,
wow. So that's my product. That's an option out there. Now, there are medical interventions that also increase your free testosterone or your own production of testosterone. One is a fertility drug called Clomid. It's short for clomiphene. And there's another drug that's made from Clomid called enclomiphene. And here's why people take enclomiphene. Clomid consists of two isomers. One's called enclomiphene, the other is called zuclomiphene. Now, one of these increases your testosterone production. The other one is what's called an estrogen agonist, where it actually increases the effects of estrogen. So you don't necessarily want that. So people take this, so people get rid of the one isomer that does that, and they just use enclomiphene. So now you're getting the properties that increase your own production of testosterone. Now, the problem with Clomid is the mechanism of how it works. What it does is it tricks your brain into thinking estrogen levels are low. So your body ramps up luteinizing hormone to increase testosterone in order so some of it converts to estrogen. So it's interesting. It's your body going, hey, our estrogen levels are too low. Well, estrogen is made from testosterone. So how do we increase estrogen? We increase testosterone so that some of it converts back. I don't like this mechanism of action because even though your estrogen levels are not low, it's tricking your brain into thinking they're low, and you often get the negative side effects of having low estrogen levels, such as the mood issues, the lowered sex drive. So sometimes people take Clomid and their testosterone goes way up, but their sex drive either doesn't improve or sometimes it even goes down. And sometimes their mood goes off. Now, my friend Dr. Gordon uses Clomid a lot with his patients, and he thinks that those side effects rarely happen. They're minimal. But I've had a lot of people I've used Clomid myself in the past, and I never got any of those side effects, to be honest. I just stopped using it because I didn't find it as effective as my T booster. And it had some other weird effects, such as like your night vision would be a little bit off, things like that. And also, it's a pharmaceutical. I don't want to take a pharmaceutical unless absolutely necessary, because they all have side effects that we may not be aware of until you've used it for a long period of time. But the reason why people like this enclomiphene is that it doesn't affect your own production of testosterone. It actually increases it. So there's no suppression. So some people use that as a adjunct towards, instead of using TRT, they start with something like that. So that's an option, and you can get it. You have to get a prescription for it, but it's readily available, especially in the US. There's a lot of these online TRT type clinics, for example, where it's easy to get just about anything you want. Right now, there's other mechanisms. There's other things such as HCG, which is a injection that also increases your own production of testosterone. That's not that readily available. There's a peptide called kisspeptin that may have some benefits. But again, a lot of these things are experimental. They haven't really been used that much. So, I mean, obviously I'm plugging my own product here, but my product makes the most sense out of these options.
Sure.
Because it doesn't have the negative effects that Clomid has. It's herbal, so it's natural ingredients, and it doesn't require a prescription. And it's one of those things where you could try it for a month or two, see if it works well for you. And if it doesn't, then you probably should move on to TRT, honestly, if you're not getting, because that's probably going to be the only thing that works for you at that point. So beyond what we talked about already, such as the nutritional, improving your nutrition, improving your vitamins and minerals, things like that. Honestly, at a certain point, those things are they're only going to be so impactful as you age. As you age, you're going to need more aggressive interventions to get things where they need to go. And my product, which is called Aggressive Strength, is definitely an aggressive intervention to ramp up your own production of testosterone. It's been around for well over 10 years.
It's such a metal name that you've gone with, Aggressive Strength. You know, I love it.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
what are your thoughts on some of the other touted herbal supplements like Tonkat Ali, and is it
that doesn't do much. That increases you're going to go from low testosterone to less low testosterone, but not moderate or high testosterone. You're going to get at best like a 20% bump in testosterone, and that's nothing. So if you're at 300, now you're at 360, big deal. That's not high enough. You need to go from 300 to 800 to feel a difference, not 300 to 360 or 300 to 400. So Tonkat Ali, if I thought it were effective, it'd be in my product.
Right.
And Tonkat Ali has other problems. It can cause insomnia with a lot of people. It can get people really agitated. Now, I know some people who take it and they love it. So it's just one of those things you'll have to try. You may find, but in terms of increasing your testosterone levels, I don't think it does it profoundly. It may have some other benefits. And that's why sometimes people feel better on it. Their libido goes up, things like that. But I don't think it's from a profound increase in testosterone.
Interesting. Have you tried it yourself?
Oh, I've tried it many times. I tried it a year. Like when I first started looking at things that trick to increase testosterone, I tried Tonkat Ali. I tried Tribulus. That's the other one, the Bulgarian herb.
Yes.
I didn't find any of these things effective.
Really?
I didn't even think that there were natural options that were effective. I came across bulbine natalensis because a really good friend of mine, Anthony Roberts, he saw me writing about testosterone and natural ways to increase it. He's like, man, I just tried this herb from South Africa. It's not even on the market anywhere in America. He's like, let me send you some. You got to try this stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. And at that time, I was working out with my friend Mark Philippi, a strength coach, and I was on this really intense training regimen. And when you work out really hard, that actually lowers your testosterone levels. Forget about raising it. When you work out really hard, it lowers your testosterone levels because cortisol is going up. Yeah. That's why professional athletes, they often have there's a lot of professional athletes, such as NFL players, they take Viagra to have sex because they're so stressed. These are young guys.
Wow.
They're taking ED drugs because they're so stressed from the wear and tear of their physicality being pushed to the limits that it has, and they can't take things such as testosterone without flagging. Those things are prohibited in that. Now, obviously, there's ways to work around these things. That's a whole other discussion. But the point is that they're under a lot of stress. And when you're under a lot of stress, nothing kills a sex drive more than high levels of stress for men, period. Your stress is through the roof. The last thing you're thinking about is sex, because sex is something that you think about doing when you're in a thriving state, because that's when you look at procreation, we want you to contribute to the gene pool because you're healthy.
Yes.
So if you're really unhealthy and stressed and all that, you have a low sex drive because it's nature's way of saying, we don't want you contributing to it. You're going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Yeah, of course.
Comes right back to that. So yeah, I've tried all these different herbs out there, but when I tried bulbine natalensis, I noticed a big difference. And I was in a very stressed state when I was using it, just from not personally, but just from the physical training I was going through. And I started noticing I was getting better workouts. I was able to push myself harder. And this is a long time ago. This is 2010 when I first started playing around with it. I didn't actually make my own formula and put it out until 2013. But I was like, wow, this herb actually worked. And then I measured testosterone and it was a bump higher. I think I was around 700 instead of being around 500, which was my baseline at the time. So like a 200-point increase during a stressful period of training as well. So I go, this stuff really works. And I've had customers where it works way better for them, like where they take my product and their testosterone goes from 300 to 900, 400 to 800.
Oh, wow. So
it's not uncommon for people to get 200, 300, 400 points. It's not uncommon at all. More importantly, they feel way better than they did before they start taking it. So yeah, most of the herbs out there they're really not that effective. The only ones that are effective are the 3 that are in my product, and then the 2 I mentioned, Phaedrogia agrestis, that works. And Muscularia acuminata, that also works. Those are very effective. They're not as effective as bulbine, but those are things people could try too. But
you don't recommend taking all of that stuff together, do you? Is that what you were saying before?
No, because I don't think it's synergistic. I think they basically compete with each other because all 3 do the same thing. So taking all 3 together, I've actually taken Phaedrogia and bulbine together, what's in my product, And it actually had my testosterone still went up, but it wasn't as much as just taking bovine alone. So what's the point? What's the point of combining two things if it's not going to be as good as just taking one of them?
Yeah. Do you also have an ideal, like, just supplement stack that you would add on top of that to help the whole process?
The only supplement stack I would add on top of that are things that address minerals, such as magnesium and zinc are really important. Zinc is, because if you have a zinc deficiency, that can cut your testosterone in half.
Oh, wow.
So zinc deficiency is no joke. Yeah. So making sure and you know what? A lot of these things, if you're not taking zinc, just start taking it. 30 milligrams,
sure,
zinc citrate's good.
Yeah, just
you don't have to go get tested. Yeah, you don't have to go get tested because it's important to make sure your zinc levels are good. Start taking zinc, start taking magnesium. Like magnesium glycinate is a good option that's really inexpensive.
Do you recommend the cream? Do you recommend it in a powder? Like, cause
I like transdermal. I like transdermal magnesium personally, and I have my own product. I don't want to just plug everything I sell.
That's all right.
I want to give people options.
You sell it for a reason. So if you and I'm
So I like transdermal. It's a transdermal zinc and magnesium product. So I think especially magnesium absorbs really well through the skin. But you can also take magnesium glycinate, which is a good oral option that's inexpensive. You can take zinc citrate, which is a good option as well. You can eat foods rich in these things, nuts and seeds, dark chocolate. Those are all there. But again, I think supplements give you, they're basically insurance. It allows you to make sure that your levels are in a good range. With food, it's predicated on how good is your digestion, how good are you extracting these things from the foods you're eating. What's the quality of the food you're eating? You don't really know. The zinc is going to vary from batch to batch with different foods that you're going through. So supplementation makes sense to me. And there's good multivitamins out there that have methylated B vitamins, which are really important for stress management.
I've heard a lot. I've been listening to Gary Brecker. Yeah.
Yeah, B vitamins get depleted when you're under a lot of stress. And then they have zinc, they have magnesium. But generally, a lot of people need 400 milligrams to up to a gram of magnesium. You're not going to get that amount from a multivitamin, so you're going to have to supplement on top of that.
Separately.
And the zinc, you supplement on top of that. Selenium, you can have 2 or 3 Brazil nuts. You just add that to a protein shake or just take it as a snack throughout the day or once a day. And that gives you selenium, which is important for testosterone, which is also important for thyroid. And thyroid is basically what controls your energy reserves. And remember that producing things such as testosterone and other sex hormones is very energy intensive. So anything that you can take that improves your overall energy, improves your thyroid health, is going to improve your overall energy, which improves your ability to produce thriving hormones. You have to remember that things like testosterone, these are things that you produce when you're in a thriving state.
Yeah.
So the healthier you are, the more reason you're giving your body to produce these things. The less healthy you are, forget it. Now, the good thing about magnesium also is that taken before bedtime, it helps improve your sleep quality. So it lowers cortisol, which is important for your testosterone going up. And then it improves your sleep quality. It has a good effect on insulin sensitivity. We talked about that earlier. That's a master control hormone. So the magnesium is just a no-brainer. It's great for heart health. There's so many benefits of taking magnesium. Now, here's the thing, though. If you have really low testosterone levels and you take zinc and magnesium, it's unlikely that you're going to go from low to optimal. You'll go from low to a better number, but chances are you're not going to get to exactly where you need to be. And if my theory is correct that we become desensitized to hormones over time, then you may need to be at a higher level as you get older than a younger level, because to feel the benefits. Now, you're still getting benefits whether you feel it or not. That's the other thing. You don't have to necessarily feel something for it to be beneficial. Now, like there's benefits of taking vitamin C. You're not going to feel a thing from it, but that doesn't mean that the benefits aren't happening.
I'm tripping sometimes we get a little C, man.
Sometimes we get too attached on, well, I don't feel anything, from doing this. It's like, well, look, I don't feel anything from taking vitamin D supplements, but having vitamin D levels optimal is really good for my immune system. Yeah. And that's another one to bring up is like vitamin D is also important for hormonal health. And if some people, you may get all the vitamin D you need from sun exposure. Darker complexion folks, you tend to not absorb vitamin D from the sun as much, or the sun exposure doesn't have as much of a profound effect in ramping up your own vitamin D levels. So vitamin D is one that's a blood test that's definitely worth getting just to see where you're at. because you probably need to take 5,000 IUs or maybe up to 10,000 IUs to get into an optimal range, which is at the higher end. You want to be at between 60 and 100. 60 to 80 is a good range. But if you're on the low end of vitamin D, it has a negative effect on your immune system. You're more likely to get sick. Your cortisol levels are going to be higher. And vitamin D is basically a hormone. So it has, by making sure that your vitamin D levels are at an ideal range, that helps have a positive effect on your growth hormone levels, your testosterone levels. So vitamin D is a big one as well.
Okay, so I've got a plan. How about this? I will take, I'm going to buy some of your products, and I'm going to get my bloods done.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we'll have a look and see where I'm at, and I'll get the bloods done, see where I'm at. I'll get your products, and I'll take them for however long you recommend, and then I'll do another test.
I would say 12 weeks.
12 weeks?
If you're willing, that 12 weeks is a good. So it's like a 3-month.
Yep.
That's long enough to just not only get the increase, but experience the benefits of the increase too.
Cool. Yep. And we'll take I'll do the supplements as well. I take vitamin D, but maybe I don't take enough. I don't know where my levels are at. Again, we can see. Right. And I'll do a little guinea pig and see what the results are. And maybe we can do another pod and we can talk about it after I get the second blood test. That'll be really interesting because I'm keen to try it, and hopefully that'll help some other people kind of make sense of their own situation as well, and with any luck we'll see some good results. And if it's and as you said, if it's not moving the needle enough, okay, on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's so much more to this than people realize about the way that you feel about your life.
Yeah, the way I look at it is like hormones have way more effect on your positivity than being positive has on hormones. Right?
Wow, yeah.
So people go, just think more positive. I was like, right, but if you're not really in a positive mental state, you're just faking it. You go, I'm just going to tell myself I'm positive.
Yes.
Why do that when you can overhaul your endocrinology so that you actually feel that way?
Yeah. So what's on the back end? What are the things that are bad? What are the negatives? What are the problems that one can face when they're supplementing naturally and then also like taking TRT? What's the downsides?
Well, there's nothing really with supplements because that's just ramping up your own production. So the worst case scenario there is it just doesn't work.
Sure.
And then you wasted some money. But it's not going to have a negative impact on your overall health.
Right.
Now, the herbs in my product, they either work or they don't. Yeah. Now, there were some rat studies that showed that they can have one of the herbs in my product, bulb monadolensis, can have a negative impact on liver and kidneys. But you have to realize the dosage amount they were using with rats was super high, way higher than what people take when they use my product. That's number one. And number two, animal studies rarely have any relevance to what actually happens with humans. Okay, like raisins and chocolate are dangerous for dogs, but they're completely innocuous for people. So if we just used animal experiments, we would say, "Oh, don't touch dark chocolate or raisins; they're lethal." Yes. No, for them they are. For us, they're not.
I'm more interested in the human.
So I don't put too much weight on animal stuff. I don't put too much weight on animal studies, positive or negative. That's why, I don't use. There was a rat study that showed that bulbine natalensis, one of my herbs, increased testosterone by 300%. I never use that study because, and when I do bring it up, I always say that was a rat study. Because I noticed that other people that try to sell the herb, they always say that without delineating that it was a rat study. It wasn't a human study.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
good for you because then it's going to be like, hang on.
And I've had people get a 300% increase, by the way, but I wouldn't say it's the norm. I wouldn't say that the vast majority of people do. That would be misleading. Yeah. So the negatives there are not really. Most people come back and all their health markers have improved. I haven't had anyone take my products and go, "Oh man, my blood pressure went way up," or "My liver enzymes were elevated." I haven't seen that. Is it possible? Sure, but I haven't seen that. Now with TRT, it's the same thing. It's dose related. If the more you take, the more likely you are to have side effects. So I think the ideal thing to do there is find the lowest dose possible that is effective. And see how you do with that.
Sure. Sure.
And I think even there, I think the negatives are, look, I think you're going to get more negative side effects. And again, I'm not talking about anabolic steroids. I'm talking about bioidentical testosterone replacement, which is completely, Steroids are made from that, but it's not the same category. Like the testosterone cream doesn't have the same side effects as taking some anabolic steroid does.
Yes.
I think you want to work with a physician and you want to monitor certain things to see how it's affecting you. But I think I've known people that have been taking stuff like that for a long time, and their blood markers have improved. Their cholesterol is great. Their glucose levels are good. Their insulin sensitivity has improved. So I think you start low and you just build up over time. You take time to find out what the activation dosage is for you, where you're going to feel your best. And then you see, are there any negative side effects at this state? And if there are, what can we do to counter it? Because if there are at that level and you feel great at that level, what can we do to counter it so you don't have to lower that level? And then or lower the level and see if you still have the same benefits without the negatives. So I wouldn't say that like TRT is something that you just want to start taking and not monitor what's going on. You definitely want to monitor what's going on. But I think over time, you don't need to monitor as much, because once you have the dosage dialed in, that's best for you. Honestly, I would be more worried about the negatives of having low testosterone levels over time than having levels that are too high. Because testosterone is not just important for brain health. It's your heart has testosterone receptors. Every organ in your body has testosterone receptors. So testosterone is it's not just about sex drive and building muscle. It's about your overall health and vitality as well, and your motivation. A lot of people, as they get older, their motivation starts declining, starts going down, because their body's in a depleted state. We're not meant to live as long as we live. That's the other thing too.
Yeah,
we're not. I mean, in not so recent times, most people didn't make it past 40 or 50.
Yeah.
So it's like the body isn't equipped to, like, okay, let's make this person live to 100. It's not designed that way.
What's the quality of life?
Like we've figured out how to extend life over periods of time. By most of the time, you would die from something. Like having low testosterone levels was the least of your worries. You didn't live long enough to have low testosterone levels. You died when you were 30.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, well, let's make sure that we stay healthy now, because in 60 years, I want to make sure that my T levels are still good. No, you weren't going to make it that far. So it's like you weren't designed to worry about what's it. So these are all new problems that have happened from us figuring out how to extend lifespan.
And I guess that's the philosophical question too, is would you rather, let's just say, and I don't know this to be true at all, but let's just say taking TRT can potentially shave 15 years off your life. Now, that's probably not true, but let's say that it is. Would you rather live to be 90 and feel like shit for 30 or 40 years, or be 75 and feel great? I mean, for me personally, I'll take 75 really good, vibrant years.
I'll take less than that even. I'll take 65 if I'd rather feel great up to 65 than feel terrible from 50 to 80 or something like that. Yeah. To me, it's not the length of the life that, this is me just speaking personally. It's not a marathon, and it's not the length of the life that matters the most. It's the quality of the life you have. So I'd rather have high quality for as long as possible than have low quality. It's kind of like what you hear about with these calorie restriction mechanisms that supposedly increase lifespan. So you live on this ridiculously low amount of calories, and it's going to extend your lifespan by no one really knows what the number is, because it's only started. Let's say you get an extra 5 years from that. Yeah, but you basically starved yourself. The quality of your life was so low. Who cares about those extra 5 years? Yeah,
you get 5 extra years of misery.
Most people would rather have 5 years less, but you lived more abundantly.
Yeah. So what's your regime for yourself at the moment? Like, how old are you now?
I'm 51.
Okay. So what do you do for your hormone health?
So I've been taking my testosterone booster for a long time. I started playing around with testosterone cream like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, just as an experiment. And so far I like it. So I'm not sure. I haven't decided whether it's something I'm going to keep doing indefinitely, but it kind of reinforces what I've said about how we become desensitized to testosterone as we get older. Because with my product, my levels were pretty good. I was still like at 700 total testosterone. My free testosterone was 106 to 120. So it's not off the scale high, but it's good levels. And I felt okay at that. But taking the cream, my levels have gone way higher than that. And I definitely feel way better at that. Now, that should seem obvious. Like your levels you're at a much higher level, you're going to feel better. So I want to stay on this, and I'm running my T booster with this. And what that does is it allows me to keep my own production going. So the cream is way less suppressive than the shots are, at least the once a week shots are. So I'm not too worried about suppression. And at my age, it may be worth my time just staying on indefinitely. But right now I'm doing it as an experiment. I'm taking my T booster with it so that if I do want to go off, it's easy. My T booster keeps my own production going. And it also prevents some of the side effects, such as if you take exogenous testosterone for a long period of time, you're not making your own testosterone anymore. And that can cause testicular shrinkage, which, is not a big deal, I guess. I guess it depends on how many people are seeing your testicles at that point, whether that's a problem for you or not.
Yeah, it depends on how often you measure the size of your nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't noticed any of that. And I think part of it is because the cream it's not that suppressive. And then two, I've been taking my T booster with it. So I've been doing an experiment with that, and that's been fun. I like it. I actually feel pretty good on that. I don't feel like a million times better on it, but I definitely feel a bump on this. So I'm going to keep that going for a while, see how that goes.
Is there a concern?
I take supplemental D.
Sorry to cut you off, though. Is there a concern with the cream that I've heard where you need to worry about it rubbing off on loved ones or anything? Because
yeah. So you just take it at a time where you're not going to be around. So you just take it only about like. Now, well, first of all, you apply it to your scrotum, right? So it's not like on your arm where it's because you apply it there.
Where do you put it?
Yeah. You apply it on your scrotum, not just because that's obviously an area that's not going to come into contact with too many people. Yeah. If it does, that's your business. But that's number one. But number two is that the skin is really thin there, so it absorbs way better there.
Right.
So you actually get much better absorption with it.
Okay.
So you do that twice a day. Yeah, I mean, you would want to avoid a couple hours, supposedly. Like if you're gonna have sex, you would want to do it like maybe a couple hours after applying the cream, or you just don't apply it that day, or you apply it afterwards, or depending on how often it is, if it's like once or twice a week, who cares? It's not that big of a deal if some of it absorbs. If it's every day, then you want to make sure you space it out.
Sure.
Yeah. So overall, that's not a big problem.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that answers a lot of questions. If you're putting it, you just make sure you wash your own underwear and
exactly. Exactly.
In an environment where hopefully you're not in an environment where your nuts are touching lots of people throughout the day, so you should be fine.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Now I take DHEA. I take pregnenolone because I think especially if you're going to take testosterone, that can downregulate your pregnenolone and DHEA.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that all three, and then you get the benefits. It's way more beneficial to take all three of those together than to just take one of them together. Because DHEA, again, is the ultimate stress management hormone. Pregnenolone is incredibly beneficial for your brain. It just makes your brain sharper. So when you take these three, you're just dialed in. You're ready to go. You're just on point. Now, beyond that, I take a good multivitamin, which has the methylated B vitamins. It has iodine. It has selenium, things like that. I take my magnesium zinc supplement just to make sure that's on point. I take another product I carry called Restorezyme, which is systemic enzymes, which help lower the need for high levels of inflammation. So they mitigate excess inflammation levels. And that's one of my favorite products, period, because it improves workout recovery. Your joints feel way better. Your body's not as beat up. As you get older, systemic enzymes become way more important. I have an estrogen control supplement that I take. This lowers excess estrogen levels. And I take 1 cap of that a day just because when you're taking, and I wasn't taking that before, but because I'm taking testosterone cream right now as an experiment, I take it with that because as your testosterone goes way up, there can be conversion to estrogen. And my estrogen levels are perfect. So it's working really well at just 1 cap. My testosterone is much higher with the cream, but my estrogen levels are the same as they were before. So it's perfect. Exactly where you want it to be. Like again, with estrogen, you don't want it too low, but you don't want it way too high either. Some people think that it doesn't matter how high your levels go. I completely disagree with that. I think estrogen has to be within a certain range for you to feel your best. So that's pretty much it with like the supplemental regimen. There's other things I play around with, but not for hormone optimization. I take like glutamine for gut health. I take probiotics for gut health. And my diet, I've been on a plant-based vegan diet since I was in my since I was 20 years old. So that's been over 30 years now.
Wow.
I don't do that for hormone optimization. I do that just for my own personal reasons, just for
I think that's how I found you, because at the time I was vegan as well. I think I did it for about 5 or 6 years, and it just I was struggling, if I'm honest. I think I
No, some people do, man. That's the thing. Everyone's got to be on. You try things, and just because if something's a fit for someone else doesn't mean it's going to be a fit for you. So everyone has to find what works best for them.
Yeah. But so you've been doing that since you're in your 20s.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a long time.
Wow.
So I eat a lot of nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables, legumes, mushrooms. I have good quality protein powders, but I try to get most of my food from real food, meaning I don't eat a lot of the fake stuff, fake meats and things like that, overly processed foods. I eat that from time to time if I go out, because I like the taste of it, but it's not something that I eat a lot of.
Yeah, right. So what's your main, because this is the thing that I found when I was doing it, is that was my intention, was to eat a lot of as much whole food as I could. But I just found as time went on, I was just craving like meat. So therefore I was eating meat-like products, like the fake chicken and the
See, me personally, I was never a big meat eater, even when I ate meat. And my mother was a lifelong vegetarian.
Right.
And my father was a meat eater. I ate meat growing up, but it was never something that I really liked that much. It was never something that I craved. Yeah. So honestly, I used to look at what my mom ate, and I'd be like, hey, can you just make that for me instead of what we normally eat? Because I gravitated towards that. So we all gravitate towards certain things.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense, that your body's
exactly. We all have different. Yeah, we all have different physiology. And so there's certain things are going to work for some people that work better for other people, or that don't work as well for other people. That's why everything, no one wants to hear this, but everything is experimentation. Everything. Yeah. You really have to experiment to find out what works for you.
Until I've done it.
Yeah. Whether it's working out, whether it's eating, whether it's hormone optimization, whether it's supplements, it would be great for someone to be like, oh yeah, just take this and you'll be all set. We don't know what works for us until we try. We just have to experiment with that.
No, it's true.
Obviously, the vegan diet works for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it this long. I've been doing it for 30 years. If we were going to have problems, they would have manifested a long time ago. You're not going to be able to sustain. I still work out at a high level. I still have like same amount of muscle size and strength and things like that. Yeah. So it's obviously, if your diet is not giving you what you need, you're not going to be able to sustain all that. I don't care what you're taking.
Yes. Well, and I think that it speaks volumes to your physique, that you don't, and I don't mean any offense by this, but you don't look like a vegan, whereas there is a look right. that a lot of vegans get, and that I got. Yeah. I just shrank. Yeah. I wasn't trying to. I was constantly working on trying to build and just maintain muscle, and my body was just like struggling, and I think that from what I have learned is that exactly what you seem to have learned is there's some folks and it works really beautifully towards some folks it really doesn't work. Like I know some people that they just crave seafood, whereas I could happily go never eating seafood again. Like I don't dislike it, but I don't ever crave.
Yeah, and those cravings may be indicative of something that you need from that. For whatever reason, like there's something that you're getting from that you're not going to get otherwise. Yeah. And people always like to make other decisions for other people, going like, no, just do this, this will work. And maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you have to, honestly, at some point you have to listen to your own, no one knows how you feel but you. Yeah. So you have to play around with things to figure out what's going to make you feel your best. Now I'm an ethical vegan, right? So I would eat eggs. I mean, I don't like the taste of eggs. I probably wouldn't eat eggs that often. But under certain circumstances, like if I had my own chickens and they're laying eggs, I wouldn't have a problem with eating the eggs, right? Just put it that way. But I don't really like the taste of eggs. So that's not something that I could imagine myself eating every day or over a long course of time. Plus, I don't really feel like there's anything missing from what I do. It works for me. I don't feel like I'm depleted in any way. And I know nowadays there's a lot of other vegans that are way bigger and stronger than I am. You see them all over Instagram. So it's no longer just this anomaly thing. But I think most people are going to find that there's a balance somewhere that works best for them. Yeah. So I think the mistake some people make is they go from extreme. So like they try vegan, they go, okay, that didn't work, so let me just go to carnivore. Like, okay, well, why do you have to go to that extreme?
Yeah.
Maybe you take some of the things from the vegan diet that were working for you and you add some of the things from eating meat that work for you as well. And you find this balance among everything.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's like, that didn't work, so I'm not going to do anything that I learned from there. I'm going to do something completely different,
Yeah. Well, and I think that
doesn't make any sense either.
It's also paying attention to what all of these different schools agree on, which is getting rid of processed food. That's basically
exactly
the number one thing. Eat real food. The more the more processed it is, the more you should stay away from it. There isn't a single diet methodology that doesn't agree with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Other than the bodybuilding one, which is the if it fits your macros, which is just like, but that's purely trying to get aesthetic. And like, I don't know what it's doing to people's organs, because, you can eat just these things that are just a paste in a wrapper, and that's totally fine. It's got all kinds of fucking crazy maltitol and all this other stuff in it. But
exactly. Exactly.
I feel like that one's a bit of a recipe for long-term disease.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mike, this has been a really good chat, brother. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's been really great. So let's do this experiment. I'm keen. I'm going to get a bunch of your stuff. I'm going to get my bloods done, and we can see where I'm at now, and then we can see where I'm going to be at in a few months, in 3 months.
Yeah, man, that sounds great.
Yeah. It'll be cool. I'm really excited about it, because it's time for me to do something different, and try and get a bit of vitality back into my life. Yeah, that sounds good, man. I appreciate it. Awesome, brother.
Look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, where should I send people, mate? Where can people find you?
Yeah, people can go to my website, mikemahler.com. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram, there's a link on there as well. And I don't encourage people to use Instagram. So I'm a bit of a hypocrite, even though I'm on Instagram. But my website is loaded with a lot of information, so you can just dock there and dive more into the things that we talked about.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Thanks, brother. Cheers, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.